Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of A Manchester Requiem, a Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle set in Manchester, England. I did not mess it up. Yes. With me tonight, over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Sass. I'll be playing Daniel of Clan Toreador.
I'm Alicia, and I'll be playing Lark of Clan Gangrel.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm playing Kit of Clan Malkavian.
So, for those that are curious about the Manchester Requiem, it is a play-by-post game that we are currently working on, but we're introducing the actual game itself as a live stream, which is why it's a miniseries. So it will continue on after the events of the miniseries, so it's not the whole chronicle, but it will be, as you'll see, an aspect of it. Also, I'd like to give a hello and a thanks to at Alta_Mirage on Twitter, who did our awesome character art, which should be pictured here, and was sent out on Twitter. But yeah, so thank you very much for that. They are awesome, and the players are really happy with it, and I'm really happy with it, so thank you. I will get straight into things by doing a little bit of a background introduction on this chronicle, so that we're not having to introduce it all in stream. So this chronicle, unlike Blood on the Thames, is going to be set on a more modern period. So it's set in the year 2018, and the game itself will specifically take place on Saturday, August the 18th in 2018. This takes place in Manchester as opposed to London. Now, originally this was separate and a very small fiefdom, which was paired with Manchester and Liverpool during the 1920s, until, due to the fact that Liverpool was a rarity and they had a Brujah prince, the two unified and became a large urban sprawl. This was maintained for a long period of time until after the Second World War, at which point the Camaria's focus changed from the southern areas of the country and began progressing north. And that's when it came to the attention of the Camarilla that Manchester was a bit of a Brujah Anarch superpower area, which they didn't like, understandably. And so, whilst the Brujah were comfortable in their uncontested rule of power, the Brujah helped to put into power a prince, simply known as Prince Wallace, who was a venturer of considerable age, who systematically removed and destroyed the Anarch and Brujah individuals who would contest his rule. Though this brought the Anarch city's population into decline through conflict and skirmishes, complacency within the Brujah power base, coupled with the suddenness of the attacks, caught them off guard. And within a very short space of time, Prince Wallace had bloodied the Brujah and Anarch noses enough that they had been forced to abandon Manchester and seek refuge in Liverpool, and even in cities further north. Although Prince Wallace's harsh rule and solidified the sect's power, the loss of the Brujah and Anarch power bases made the continued joining of Manchester and Liverpool extremely difficult, and over time relations between the two cities' kindred soured as sect members clove to the areas in which they had more of a foothold: the Ivory Tower in Manchester and the movement in Liverpool. Though a new Primogen balked at the idea of losing Liverpool to any degree, Prince Wallace recognised that seeking to control too much domain was foolhardy, and chose instead to focus his efforts on consolidating power in Manchester itself. In doing so, Wallace became known as a brutal tyrant, but his methods ensured the attainment of greater and greater power for the sect. As a result, most turned a blind eye to his method, all save the Brujah and their rebellious peers in the movement, who became more resolved than ever to bring an end to the prince. Through a series of carefully planned and rapidly executed strikes made possible through the use of their staging area in Liverpool and their increasing hatred for the brutal prince, the Anarchs launched a series of attacks on Manchester that not only crippled the Primogen and the older city kindred, but also robbed Prince Wallace of a lot of support from the younger vampires, many of which turned against Prince Wallace as soon as the opportunity to do so presented itself. Driven from his personal domain, the tyrant was torn apart within the walls of the very Elysium in which he had previously held court. Although it took them time to rally, and despite the loss of their prince, The Camarilla kindred were eventually able to halt the movement's invasion through the late countering of the city's ancilla and elders, and the emergence of a brilliant and cunning war leader in the form of Fabian Madison. Through his direction and actions, the Ivory Tower not only managed to stop the Anarchs from taking more territory, but also succeeded in retaining the loyalty of a large number of younger vampires throughout the attacks. In doing so, and because a younger kindred was considered by the Primogen to be far more controllable than an aged and powerful one, Madison was gifted the position of Prince of Manchester, a title which he still holds into the modern nights. Despite losing many of the older Camarilla kindred to the Beckoning, the city remains largely controlled by the Ivory Tower. The movement has laid claim to a large chunk in the southern and northern edges of the city, as well as to the west, though has been unable to seize power of the more potently monetary and influential assets while settling in. This in large part is due to the tactical and cautious mind and methods of Prince Madison, who has proven time and again to be a dangerous and cunning leader. But the Anarchs are not without their own purpose. In the emergence of Carmine Hurst, a potent and popular Brujah, the movement remains stuck fast but zealot, and they're waiting for a chance to take more and more of the city back from the ones who, in their minds, stole it from them in the first place. And it's into this city and into this environment that we meet our Coterie. This young Coterie, through the actions of various members within it, has seized for itself a domain which, whilst considerably sized for young kindred, is in a questionable position because it is located south of the Mancunian Way, an area of the city which, as far as most of the Camarilla kindred are concerned, belongs to the Anarchs. So, on the evening of the August the 18th, which is a Saturday, around the time of 1900 hours after the sun has gone down over Manchester, people are still moving, life is still vibrant, and the city is still very much alive. You awake. Not in the way that most other people would understand it, but you become animate. Eyes which were not closed suddenly begin seeing. Ears begin hearing. The sound of drifting cars, the sound of people speaking in the distance, far greater distance than human ears should hear. And then, above it all, a very familiar and a very powerful and overwhelming sensation. Stronger slightly in one of you than the others. That pain, a gripping, twisting pain in the knot of your stomach, which reminds you, more than anything else, of what you are. So, if you would all like to take a moment to describe what each other sees when they look upon their Coterie mates, and then after that describe the environment in which you wake for the purpose of the audience. If we start with Sass.
Daniel is, so what you see when you look at him is a fairly broad man with kind of light brown hair tied back. And as he sits up stiff from torpor, he checks his hair to make sure that it's all still in place. He has a full beard, as well as reaching to one side to take up a set of rectangular rimmed glasses and very neatly puts them on his face.
Okay. Alicia.
Lark is a young woman, and she's fairly nondescript except for the fact that she has a head of very untamed, wild, pale hair. And when she wakes up, her way of bringing herself to rise is basically just raking some fingers through the hair and just trying to get it down. with very little success. The room in which she wakes is fairly decrepit, with little to no light, with a bunch of photographs strung up against a wall that are currently drying after a chemical bath.
Okay. Chris.
So Kit is fairly tall, a bit shy under 6 foot tall, but painfully thin. It's dark hair, short and fairly messy, and tends to seem fluid in his movements, but very hunched and withdrawn. He wakes up in an attic room, carefully fixed to block out the light. He doesn't have much in this room. It's not a particularly nice room. But what is in there is organised meticulously and is spotlessly clean. So when he dresses, he tends to wear black clothes, hoodies, soft jackets, shoes with soft soles, something that stay quiet.
Okay. So you as a coterie are in one of the not quite uncommon positions that quite a few kindred find themselves in these nights. Manchester, although it has lost quite a few of its younger kindred to the Anarchs, has maintained quite a few purely through the charisma and the efforts of its new prince. A prince who himself, at least by comparison to some of the older kindred, certainly by Prince Wallace's standards, is not that old. There are hearsay that he is potentially 9th generation, potentially 8th generation, but in either case, he is not old in years. But what he achieved during the fight against the Anarchs is what earned him the seat. And because he appeals to so many young kindred, there are more than a few coteries which are banding together, fit with the idealism that if they do commit themselves to this war against the Anarchs, they will achieve power, because it's what's been told will happen. And to some degree, you've seen that. It's a small degree. This domain is not vast, and it's certainly not ideally placed, but it's yours. But despite that, the kindred around you, you don't know that well. You've been together about a year, at most. That, to most normal kind, would be a great deal of time to get to know someone. For solitary predators, who are by their very nature paranoid, that is no time at all. So as you wake and you glance around yourselves in this not quite upkept, save in potentially one area, storage shed, such as it is in southern Manchester, you guys have all woken up. You've glanced around, you've seen one another. There's Lark with her hair in disarray and waking up in the kind of method that she does to prepare for the day. Her complete and utter contrasting opposite, Daniel, who is one of those really annoying people that can wake up and they look like they're ready for a commercial. You know, immaculate, hair's in place. You know. We all know someone like that. And then there is Kit, who is so utterly focused on the environment around him that attention to himself just seems as an afterthought. So, just to confirm, was it only one of you which failed the rouse check I asked you to make?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, everyone has fed recently. The beast, while it is there and the hunger is still felt in your gut, is not significant enough to be the driving force that motivates your waking thoughts. So with that in mind, what do you do when you wake?
So Kit is checking his belongings. He's checking they're exactly where they should be, the orientation of them, the dust around them, to make sure nothing has been in and disturbed them whilst he's been unconscious. Once he's satisfied that they're all okay, he'll turn his attention to what the other two are doing.
Okay. And what are the other two doing?
Is this upon just arriving?
Yeah, as soon as you wake up, after you've woken, once you've got on your bearings, once you've overcome that very initial and very primal and now very familiar sensation that you have of waking up and having to wrestle the beast into immediate submission, what do you do?
She will have gone to the rooftop of her own place first, and just checked on her friend very quickly.
Okay.
And eventually we'll start to make the trek to southward toward her coterie mates. She will exercise a lot of caution as she approaches the building, so just keeping an eye out.
Okay.
But will otherwise, once she feels it's safe, we'll just approach it with, just a very normal pace.
Okay. So I should have asked. So Lark has spent the night in separate from the coterie.
Yes.
But this is not unusual for Lark. Lark does spend a lot of time alone. And whether you want to admit it to yourselves or not, this isn't necessarily a fully bad thing. Because the two kindred within this coterie that have any measure of standing within the Camarilla know full well the local opinion of the Gangrel. Not Lark specifically, but the Gangrel in general. And their removal from the Camarilla and their apparent neutrality in this war does not sit well with a lot of Camarilla powers that be. It doesn't particularly bode too well that Lark yet hasn't done anything worthy of note against the Anarchs. So it's not that they distrust her, it's more like they're waiting for her to fuck up. And the fact that you are currently saddled, sorry Lark, the fact that you two are now saddled with her is ever present on your minds that this is the way that people are now gauging your coterie. Whether or not that affects their opinion of you, you've never asked. Because you never know. They might be brutally honest. Or they might just lie to your face. They're kindred. They could go either way. But it's something that you keep in mind. So when Lark does cleave to her own company a lot, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Whether you want to admit that or not. Do you both spend the night at your communal haven? Those that have other havens?
Yeah, as long as he's got a space that no one else will go in, then yeah, Kit's quite happy to sleep at the communal haven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same.
All right, so you two spend the night in the communal haven. Okay, so describe to me what this warehouse is like.
So it's not big. It's just a kind of a rundown industrial unit. It's an old brick one, so the big garage doors on the front. In an area of other industrial units of various shapes and sizes. What it does have that's important to all of us is a decent roof space with some access to it.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add to that, Daniel?
Daniel will likely have set up a small, to fit in a space that small, but still a small desk to work on. And on it would be neatly arranged books, papers, pens. And very much how Kit checks his entire environment when he wakes. Daniel goes through that process except with himself. He's put his glasses on. He'll put on his watch. He will pick up a jacket that was removed before he went into torpor and put that on. Make sure his tie is still properly tied.
Excellent. So for both of you, given that this is the first thing that you guys check before you do anything else, your desk is exactly how you left it. Your coat is still there. It's still pressed. It's still clean. Just the way that you intend for it to be. Just the way that you were impressed upon you to maintain. And Kit, you'd know if anyone touched your stuff. You know exactly where it sits, you know exactly how it sits. You know angles, you know exact placements, you know the exact amount of force it takes to knock things over that you purposefully place precariously, and none of it has been moved. None of it has been touched. But you know that as comforting as that is, there are so many others like this around your domain that you haven't looked at yet. And you know until you do, you can't be sure. So what are you two doing now? You've checked your things. Everything's in place.
So,
Daniel? Oh, go ahead.
no, you carry on.
Daniel's first thought would probably be to mentally review any schedule he might have for this evening. He doesn't keep it written down. That might be risky. And he doesn't use electronic devices like a cell phone to keep track of that stuff. So he tries to keep an organized mental list of any appointments, any rendezvous he might have with either other kindred or mortals.
Which is an interesting point to note, because as you know, the Camarilla has in full effect the second Masquerade, which is the ban on the use of technology for anything relating to kindred affairs, no matter how subtle the affair might be, no matter how insignificant it might seem in terms of risk to the Masquerade. No. In Manchester, and this is enforced not only by Prince Madison, but also by Carmine Hurst on her side of things. Don't touch tech. But this doesn't sit terribly well with Daniel for a multitude of reasons. Not only personal, but also because of who your sire is and where their influence lies. So you've kept to this. Nothing's on your phone. Excellent. So you know as well that tonight, whilst there is no official event to which you can guarantee that most of the influential kindred will be, the Bliss is open, which as you know is the Elysium, where all of the kindred that have nothing else to do but want to check on their rivalries, that want to just go somewhere where they don't have to, in theory, worry about having to maintain a mask about themselves. That's where everyone would be. But there are no events. There is always the unofficial event on your calendar about checking in with your sire, but it's not enforced. It hasn't been enforced for a while, but it's more a personal thing. Mm-hmm. And you've got to wonder whether or not that's a conscious thing or a lingering trace of the bond. But otherwise, your schedule is largely free.
All right.
Okay. Kit?
Kit will then have some thoughts about going out, maybe checking the rest of his bits and pieces around the domain and see whether they've been disturbed in the night. He'll feel a bit more comfortable once he's been and visited them all.
Okay. So, Daniel begins occupying himself at his desk. Kit, after you've made sure everything's there, after you've done a quick surveillance of Daniel, thankful that there's nothing that needs to be discussed, that Daniel's not immediately going to prevent you from leaving, you immediately depart out the double doors. And out onto the streets. Even in this area of Manchester, it's quite busy. There's a number of cars going back and forth. There's a number of people out for walks. It's a Saturday night. And it's the early hours of Saturday night. So there's going to be a lot of foot traffic from Kine, which is also something that Lark notices on our way back through. It's something that is very easy for you to pick up on, because even though the beast is a very distant presence in your mind at this particular moment, it's always there. And it's always worse when you're surrounded by people. People that are moving past you, brushing shoulders with you, that are in discussions, laughing, crying, one or two people. Some people have been a little too heavy on the drink too early and are staggering home. There are cars pulling in, there are cars pulling out. Different shops are lit up of different kinds, different takeaway stores. You've got other shops which are open just a little bit later. And all around you, the city maintains a semblance of life. But that's not really what you're focused on at this point. Lark is checking the people, whereas Kit is checking few things that most people don't seem to notice. Some very, very small trinkets that are placed in different locations, seemingly without rhyme or reason. So both of you, since you are going to be making this check, we will have suggested pools for what you'd like to check. Do you have any preference, or would you like me to decide?
To take in the surroundings and see what I see.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to be spending a decent amount of time doing it? Are you going to be quick and just check on your way back to the communal haven?
Given where we are and that Bliss is open tonight, she'll probably have a little bit more paranoia running, just to keep an eye out. So she could wits awareness the area and see if there's just anything odd about tonight or anything of interest.
Sure. Okay, so wits and awareness from you. And
Probably the same for Kit, I think.
Okay. It'd probably be more investigation for Kit if he's checking the bits he's put down. Okay. But yes, I agree with the attribute.
Use some heightened senses as well? Or
certainly. You can. The places where you're likely to have put things, I'm guessing, won't be in public areas where it's likely to be disturbed on accident. So yes, heightened awareness wouldn't be detrimental. So yeah, you can add those as well.
3.
3, okay.
5 successes.
Okay. So, Lark, as you're making your way back, you're crossing over the streets, taking the zebra crossings, doing your absolute best to linger where you can. If a light turns amber, you'll wait for it to hit red, just so you can spend a little bit longer on that street side just watching people. And not a lot of people pay much attention to you. They all seem distracted with their own things, and you're checking faces. There's a number of people which you recognize are local to the area, because you've checked thoroughly since you moved here. You and your Coterie mates are well aware that this area was once belonged or claimed by the Anarchs before it was taken back. And whilst the Anarchs aren't now in the immediate vicinity, they're not far beyond a stone throws away of where they might wander. So you check thoroughly faces, and new faces you try to commit to memory. And the new faces you check to see where they're going, what they're doing, who they're speaking to. But nothing strikes you as odd. No one seems to be paying you much mind. Which is a question. If you're lingering out, are you blush of lifing, or are you keeping hoods up and hidden faces? What are you doing?
Hoods up.
That is a really good point, actually.
Okay, so no blush of life yet.
No.
That is admittedly... Sorry, that's...
Yeah.
You talk over.
Yeah.
No, got nervous and forgot, because if she's out in public, admittedly, that is something that...
It's entirely your call. Remember, a blush of life does last for the whole night, unless you drop it. You don't need to have it up. It's more... It doesn't tend to be stuff that will immediately be noticed to, like, passers-by, unless they're really astute. It's something that if someone is actively engaging with you, they'll notice. Because without blush of life, you are a corpse. You're a walking, talking corpse that doesn't blink, doesn't breathe. But no one notices at this moment, from what you can tell. Because it's entirely up to you if you want to raise it. You don't have to. Given that you do want to raise it?
Yes.
Or you don't? Okay. Right.
I do.
So roll a die.
Sure. Success.
Excellent. Okay, so not long after you've left, as you notice there's more of an influx of people, self-preservation kicks in more than any sort of distractedness by your environment, and you slowly begin to feel that first frighteningly alien sensation now of your lungs inflating, and it almost feels like someone's pushing your rib cage from the inside, because your lungs just don't know how to work anymore. And then after a few inflates and a few pushes, it just becomes normal. And as you glance down at your hands, it's a subtle glance, because you don't want to take your eyes off the environment. It's a subtle glance, but you notice that your palms have gone red, where before they were ashen grey. And it's a small contrast, but it strikes you every time you notice it. And then, through now blinking eyes, you watch your environment, and there is no one here that catches your notice. And before too long, Red turns to amber, turns to green, and you cross the road and start making your way back. Where is your particular friend, by the way? Close
Probably
by?
would have stayed. No, probably would have stayed back.
Okay.
Unless there was any reason for me to take her.
Can you remind me of a name?
Foxen.
Foxen. Was that Foxen or Voxen?
With an F. Foxen.
F, got you. You had to add Fox, didn't you?
It's from something else. Sass
Okay.
gets it.
Okay. It doesn't matter if she gets it. Okay. Kit, you have been wandering for about 10-15 minutes. And the reason that it's not been that long is because there's no reason for you to stand and watch people. You don't like being around other people, or at least not in the degree that your coterie mates does. Certainly not in the degree that Daniel does. And although you take note of everything, it's hard for you to remain focused when there's a job undone. So you make not necessarily straight beelines, but paths that you are familiar with, towards trinkets that you have laid out around the domain. In different places, in avenues where approach would be difficult to do without disturbing them, but would be hard to notice by a casual observer. Basically, approaches where people might try entering the domain without knowing, without you guys knowing. And it's in these places that you begin taking stock of the trinkets. In one particular place beside a door, you can find a string, very old piece of string, which is attached only by the door being sealed. And there's trinkets on the bottom. It looks like a very dirty, grubby decoration that somebody's just made because they had a moment, or someone that was, it's like old Twix wrappers and similar that have been threaded through, and it's just there as a kind of horrifyingly skeletal, ornate decoration. But it's still in place. The door's not been opened. And you doubt anybody would have the presence of mind to pick it back up and put it back in, especially not 2.5 centimeters away from the arch of the door, which is exactly where you put it. So it's still there. And then you turn the corner and you march straight down, past the bus stop, past people thriving in and out. You pause to let an old lady go past you and step forward. It's not a pause that you meant to do, but it's a moment where you're gripped and you stop because an old lady passes and you watch her face. The first face you actually watch. But it's not her, so you keep moving. And you continue down towards the end of the street. And there is an old, very old Yellow Pages. An old Yellow Pages that used to be put into the phone booth, which isn't used anymore. But most people just look at it and might give it a casual kick, but not where you've put it. Because you've put it in one of the entryways, which leads to a discarded, overarching passage which goes across the street and leads closer into the domain. And wedged against the door as it is, if it's knocked or moved, then 3 of the corners won't be in contact with the ground, which is exactly how you've put it. Not 4, not 2, 3 on the points. And it's still there. You have 2 more perhaps that you want to check. So you cross over the road. And you can hear the city lights going on. You see the city lights going on. You can hear the people going louder now. As the minutes begin ticking away, more people are leaving, going about their daily business. And you turn down an alleyway towards the eastern edge, very eastern edge of your domain. And it's second to last that you need to check. And you know that where this dumpster is that partially blocks this alleyway, you've put pebbles by the wheels in just such a way that if they move the dumpster any way to try and get past it, they'll disturb the placement of these stones. And you move over, you check one. And you move over and you check another one. And then you move over to check the third one. And at that moment, you realize that whilst the stone is still there, the actual placement of the lid, which is always sealed because it's always locked, it has to be locked because that's the standard that it has to have to stop from pests from getting in, pests from getting out. The lock is broken and it's wedged off and hanging, but the actual bin itself has not been moved, but it's so against what you are now used to after 6 months. It gets locked every night that you can't take your eyes off of it. Daniel, what are you doing? With your desk immaculate, no set plans ahead of you. Your coterie mates have gone, or one of them's gone. Lark's not come back yet. What are you doing?
You said that Bliss is open to kindred this evening. It is not expected of me to present myself to my sire, but it is something that I could do with the evening to check in.
You are all neonates at this point. There is no mandatory reason for you to check in with your sires. They have no responsibility over you. You have no responsibility to them anymore. So there's no demand. There's just politeness, which is something that you understand. It's entirely up to you whether you would or not.
Given that I've probably been staying here, or at least been here a few times with Kit, to have gotten used to the fact that he does his rounds, I'll probably wait for him to come back to see what he is otherwise up to for the evening.
Okay.
I'll
so you're going to wait.
Probably busy myself with research notes in the meantime, reviewing things that I've been working on.
Okay. Lark, you are making your way. You've come in from the west and you began making your way to the southern edge of the domain, just to give it that extra check. And it's when you begin cutting your way up across the top that you start coming into sight of where the road leads off towards your communal haven. You know this road really well at this point. You know it from above, you know it from street level. And everything looks good. It's as good as you can surmise it is. It's difficult for you ever to wake up on a day, look around and go, do you know what? Today's good. I'm safe today, because that doesn't happen.
No.
But you've made it back towards the communal haven.
Yeah.
You know that you're not too far away. Do you want to head straight back, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So.
Sorry.
Over to you.
No, I was going to add a bit of description, but I'll wait till you're done.
No, I am done. I am done. Stop me from talking.
All right. She will then make her way to the communal haven, and when she gets in, everyone sort of has their designated spot. And she will have, at one point or another, dragged in probably a used couch she's found that was still perfectly good. She would have dragged in once upon a time. And set against one of the walls. Probably furthest away from where Kit stays.
Okay.
She doesn't want to touch any of this stuff.
Okay.
And she knows what's up tonight. She knows everyone's schedules. And so she will make herself comfortable until either Kit comes back or she notices Daniel.
Okay.
Daniel would be fairly noticeable. He probably wouldn't pay you a lot of mind. He'd greet you when you arrive, politely enough. But in that sort of, I'm in the middle of something, don't bother me kind of a way.
She could take a hint.
Okay. It's not subtle, the arrival of Lark, just purely because the actual entrance to this garage is one of the ones where you pull it up. So you can hear from the old hinges of this door that as it grinds against the stone. And it's something which you've quickly learned, those of you with Auspex, to kill it when this door gets opened, because it doesn't half hurt as you lift it, and she steps in underneath and then pulls it back down and then goes off towards her corner. Kit, you've probably been staring at this lock for a good minute, because up until this point your round has not changed, and like anyone that is very, very adverse to change, it hits you very, very strikingly just how low it makes you feel to see this change. What do you do?
obviously the lock needs fixing. If Kit thinks he can do it with what he's got on him, then he'll make an attempt straight away.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll have a look in the bin to see whether there's anything that could have caused it in there, and if he hasn't got the equipment for it, he's going to go back and get the equipment to fix this lock.
Okay. So it takes you a moment of patting yourself down, and that's more because your focus still remains on this lock. As you check yourself just to see whether or not you've got anything that you can use. And everything that you would use to fix a lock is back with the others. It's back in the communal haven, because there is no reason for you to carry anything to mend a lock, because none of your placements require that kind of gear. So you can make a beeline back towards the...
Yeah, you'll move pretty quickly to get this fixed.
Yeah. So very slowly you begin backing away from this dumpster and then turn around and dart back along. Going back along the same path, this time absent the buses from the rains. And you two haven't been long together in the communal haven. Lark lying out on the couch, and Daniel looking over various notes, when you hear again the of the metal on stone as the door opens and Kit darts underneath.
So Kit will definitely look towards both of you, but only a brief glance, and then he's heading straight over to his stuff to collect his tools.
Okay. Do me a quick favor. How well disguised would you say Kit's discomfort is?
He'll look focused rather than discomfort, but he's not come to talk to them. He's got to go and get the tools.
Okay.
So yeah, he'll have obviously seen them, but he's ignoring them. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll say just roll for me. Roll intelligence plus insight, you two. Okay.
Okay. You said intelligence plus insight?
Yeah.
I'm not paying attention.
I got 2 successes.
Okay. I mean, he doesn't look terribly different from how he normally is. It is odd that he comes back this early. Even when he does his checks, he tends to go around them once, and then he'll come back, but he won't dart in, blank everyone necessarily, not to the degree that he is anyway, and grab bits and pieces. Just mistake me if I'm wrong, Kit.
No, that's
and then go straight for his stuff. Otherwise appears fine. So what are you grabbing, Kit?
So he's it'd probably be a fairly hefty tool bag, because it's repairing a lock rather than picking one. So he's going to have stuff with a dumpster. So yeah, bits and pieces for. It depends how the lock's broken. If it's dangling off, then possibly even a replacement lock, bits and pieces like that. So he'll be putting things into a bag, getting some fairly solid tools out quite quickly and efficiently. But yeah, it'd be a reasonable sized bag of stuff by the time he's finished collecting it all. Okay.
And do you say anything to your coterie mates?
No.
Do you two say anything to him?
Daniel would kind of glance at his watch, because he'll notice things like, again, Kit doing his rounds, and if this is earlier than usual, he'd notice. It wouldn't concern him. So he would kind of just maybe raise an eyebrow, just curiously, like, is there something going on with you?
Are you asking or just looking?
Probably kind of just the expression on my face would be a curious, like, what's this about?
Yeah, Kit will not pay any attention to expressions.
Okay.
Completely ignores me. Okay.
Yeah.
Which hurts. You're not used to it.
No.
And so with your bag, you begin making your way back towards the door. And if you weren't watching him before, you certainly can't help but notice his departure when that door again fucking lifts and shuts. And it's something you guys have been hesitant to change, because at the end of the day, if anyone's going to try breaking in, that's going to, you know, alert you to it more than anything else. And Kit, you make your way back out onto the street. You know exactly where you're going now. There's no need to cut along the different avenues if you don't want to. You can head straight back there directly.
Go and fix the lock, so we're going to go directly there.
Okay, so you make your way back in towards this alleyway. And the alleyway itself it's not one that leads straight off from a street. It's more one that cuts off and turns, because there's 3 different buildings situated, and this is between 2 of them, it runs horizontal across the main 2 roads. So it's not visible to anyone directly. It's only accessible if you cut along one alleyway and then breach off halfway through. So the moment that you hit that alleyway, you do a quick double check just to make sure that no one's paying any attention to you going in. Mainly because this alleyway is only really used by people that come out of the takeaway on one side and the restaurant on the flip. And that's where they come out to drop all the foods. So you make sure that no one's watching, and then you dart into this alleyway. The bin's exactly how you left it, because the moment you approach, you bet you check those stones again, just to double check, and they're still in place. The lock itself, do a investigation plus... say intelligence plus larceny.
Okay. Does this include lock picking, or you fix?
No.
So,
yeah, this isn't to fix. This is to deduce.
Yeah. 3 successes.
Okay. It looks as though the actual... now that you check, you can see that the way that the locks come off is where it embeds itself in the hole. It looks as though it's been shorn off there, as though someone's gone at it with bolt cutters. It's a clean cut, so it hasn't been forced out. It hasn't been twisted in any shape or form. It's just been cut. So it will require a fresh lock, and it was purposely done. It hasn't worn away and just opened out on its own. Not that really crossed your mind as a realistic reason. It certainly needs replacing.
So Kit will get to work just taking out the old lock and checking that it's still secure from the inside and replacing it with one he brought with him.
Okay, so you take the first lock out, you open the bin?
Yep.
Okay. So
you're going to have to open the bin to sort of lock out.
So you open the bin because you know that there's 2 locks on the inside. Because on the top of the bin, just to make it doubly secure, there is one of the imprint locks. So someone has a key fob that they push down and then twist, which normally locks it into place. 2 of those are bent inwards, meaning that although the actual exterior lock was cut off, the inside ones, it looks as though the plastic lid of the bin was pulled, met resistance of these 2, and then was forcibly yanked up. So you can see the white strain marks on the top of the plastic from where these locks have been pulled taut to almost to the breaking point. But that's not really what gains your attention as you lift the bin. You can see under the multitude of different bin bags, which have foods in various states of decay, you can see what looks to be an arm poking out from between the bins. And the flesh on it looks as though it has been held for a prolonged period over a Bunsen burner. Because the 3rd degree burns is probably the only way you can properly describe the state or the conditioning of these burns. To the degree where, although most of the arm is merely 3rd degreed, there's an area along the forearm which is burnt down to the bone. And you can see that jutting out from between 2 bin bags at an angle.
Okay, inside the bin.
Mm-hmm.
Is it moving? No. Okay, how long will it take to finish replacing the lock?
Not too long.
Let's finish replacing the lock, and then that's done, and that's tidy, and then perhaps we can get the others to look at
Okay.
bodies.
All right. So you finish check. Close the lid. You're not going to be able to seal it from the inside because those locks are bent. And you're not going to be able to bend them back in place. And even if you did, you'd probably just strain the plastic on the lid. So you bring that back down. You put down the bolt into the brand new lock, and it seals in. You have the old lock with you, and you still have your bag.
Okay. So presumably I've got keys for this lock, so I'm going to lock them in. And then I'm going to take the old lock and my bag, and I'm going to go back to the Haven and find Daniel and Lark, and they can come and deal with bodies. So
another 5 to 10 minutes passes after you've left the bin. Not because it's a large distance, certainly not when you're beelining it, but now there is that reinstalled sense of paranoia. So you do double check people around you, and this time, although you're not necessarily checking faces too much, every time there is movement around you or close to you, it's always a quick check just to make sure, just to see where they're going, seeing if they're going in your direction. And then before too long, as Daniel is finishing the last page on his reports and then putting it back down, as that door lifts back up. Oh, you bet your ass I'm doing that every time. As Kit ducks in underneath.
Perfect.
So Kit will go and put his tools away.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure they're put in the right places. So empty the bag, put things back where they're supposed to be. And then he'll bring the broken lock over to where Lark and Daniel are and hold out in his hand and say, look, someone sheared into the dumpster.
How familiar are we with all of Kit's things outside?
How
you told us
familiar?
about your dumpster. That's what I'm asking.
How familiar are they, Kit?
Probably not very. I doubt they'd have paid vast amount of attention to his pebbles and things.
No. I know he goes out to do rounds. I have no idea what he does on them.
Okay. So, Kit, who is meticulous about things, you see him coming up to you and holding out in an almost accusatory fashion this broken lock, saying someone's shorn into the lock.
Lark will have, if Kit's done anything to grab our attention, she'll pay attention to him right back. Like this, he doesn't do it all that often. So she'll sit up and look very carefully at the lock in his hands, and then sort of like with a questioning expression back at him, as though not you're being weird, more like please explain.
Okay, so Kit will wait for quite a long time for someone to say something. When he finally works out that no one's saying anything, he'll say, they put a body in my dumpster. They broke the lock.
They.
Someone. Bodies don't get in the dumpster by themselves. The lock doesn't fall in half like this, does it? Someone's done it.
Back up one step. You found a dead body in a dumpster?
Yeah, in my dumpster. Someone's cut the lock. Look, you need to come and look.
Okay. Nearby?
Well, yes.
I'm just wondering if it's in our domain.
Yes, it's our dumpster. It's my dumpster.
Your dumpster. Okay. Kind?
Lark, why don't you go with Kit and have a look? The only reason I wouldn't go myself is I don't exactly look the type to be glancing into bins. Do I?
She'll smile understandingly, more like he doesn't want to get dirty. I understand. Yeah, so she'll just nod and look back. I'd
rather not attract more attention to this than,
of course,
necessary.
She'll glance at Kit and lead on.
Okay, so Kit will lead the way. Make sure he's got the new key for the dumpster lock.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll hurry back. as
All right.
quickly as you can whilst being fairly paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are you guys just going to be lined straight back?
Pretty much, yeah.
Are you, Luck? You just going to
How-
stay on his heels and follow?
No, it's going to be more of she'll trail him, and where this dumpster is it fairly hidden? Because I don't want two people to be sort of like careening over the edge looking inside. Just
Yeah. So if you imagine that you're coming down the street, with the buildings on your right, on your left-hand side, there's a alleyway between them, which cuts straight across to the other side of to the street that's parallel. Okay. So halfway up that dividing alleyway is a T-junction alley, which segregates these two buildings. And it's in that dead-end alley that this bin is. And there's... it's one very large bin that basically accommodates these two buildings. One's a restaurant, one's a takeaway. And it accommodates both of them. The actual alley itself is large enough where this wheel bin could be pulled out and onto the street for pickup.
Okay.
But it's not visible from the street unless someone goes into this alleyway.
Okay. Before she heads down the alleyway, even though Kit's been leading, she wants to know she will look to see if there are many windows here, and perhaps if there's any security system of any kind.
Okay. Do wits and awareness then for you. Because you are not terribly familiar with these back alley bits, just purely because there's not enough people to watch in these areas.
Nope. That's 1, 2, 3. Only 3.
Okay. There isn't any CCTV which covers this area. There are some on the front of the buildings which actually might cover people going in and out of this alleyway. The grander alleyway that segregates these two streets. But not the actual alleyway where this dumpster is that Kit's leading you to. So you are aware that whilst there's not a lot of places that someone could directly watch into this alleyway, there's nothing that can see this alleyway where the dumpster is itself directly. There are CCTV on one side at least that actually covers the entrance of the whole alleyway itself. If that makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah. So you've got the alleyway which leads from one street to the next street. So if these are the two streets, there's an alleyway which cuts directly across. And then halfway down this alleyway, there's a second alleyway.
Okay.
And that's where the dumpster is. And nothing's currently covering where the dumpster is.
Okay.
So there is CCTV.
But
not where the actual dumpster is.
Cool. So it'll take a minute or two for her to catch up to Kit.
Okay.
And
which Kit's painfully aware of. She's not directly behind you, Kit. She's not following with the urgency you think this demands. But before long, she does appear.
Yeah. So I don't know if when she gets up to you, you're by the bin or not.
Yeah, he'll have checked the pebbles again.
They're still in place.
And be waiting.
She'll have a look. She'll see that you've locked it again, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what you can see as you enter into this alleyway, on the very, very far end, this dead end part is separated by a chain link fence, which goes up about 3/4 of the way. But if you went up and over that fence, it's a way of cutting across entry into the domain that doesn't involve actually going through the main street, which is one of the reasons why you suspect he's actually blocked it.
Cool.
The bin itself is turned at an angle where in order to actually get over, you'd have to either climb over the bin or move the bin to go around it. And you note from where he does a quick double check that there are pebbles placed around the wheels, which if anybody touched the bin, even to go up and over it, they would disturb them. Which is pretty in keeping with Kit's meticulousness. But his focus seems to be more on this pristine lock, this brand new lock, which is attached to the outside of the bin.
So Kit will undo the lock on it. And so they cut this lock. I had to put a new one in. I lift the bin up, the lid up, and point out where the flanges are being bent and the plastic's damaged. See, look. See, they broke the lid as well. And then there's a body in there. And I'll point at the arm.
She'll glance down. How far down is this corpse?
It's about 2/3 of the way up from the bottom of the bin.
Is that something that is within arm's reach?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to kind of pull yourself over into the bin to reach it, but you can get it.
Oh, not touching it. But I want to know the burn marks. Are they? Does it look like? Is that ash or is it like human seared flesh?
Okay. Intelligence plus medicine.
Okay.
It's not going to be high difficulty if this is the extent of your question, but if you want to gain more information.
Not a great pool. Oh wow, 3.
Wow, okay. So you're not touching it, and are you disturbing any bins? Or are you just literally inspecting the arm that's jutting out?
Just the arm for now. I'm letting him hold the lid, and I am just
so as Kit holds it up, you lean over. From what you can tell, this is flesh. It's not turned to ash, and it certainly doesn't have the necrotic burn, clearly unnatural semblance of a wound that the kindred would have from being burnt. The flesh itself is fully burned down to the bone on the forearm, but the actual blood, which has clearly been boiled because he did bleed when it happened, the rest of his arm is covered in third-degree burns, which would not happen with a kindred because third-degree burns is probably the mildest type of burn you could expect from fire as a kindred.
Yeah.
And if this is the state of the arm, you don't want to know what the rest of the body looks like. But it's certainly attached to a body because it is standing itself up that it has to be joined to something.
Yeah.
Unless someone's holding it up.
She'll glance at Kit with a meaningful expression, remember what he's like, and then go, what do you make of this?
Well, someone cut the lock to put him in there. I mean, why would you do that? They cut the lock and didn't move the bin. One
unlucky fuck, in my opinion, but this is a little close to home. I'm aware that... I'm sorry they broke your lock, first of all. Fuck. She has an idea in mind, but she's going to wait and see if Kit does anything first about this. She realizes he's staring at the lock, but is he at all concerned with, like, I get that somebody has put something in your thing, and this is disturbing to you, but it's the thing that I'm worried about.
Is this what you're saying, or is this what she's thinking?
This is what she's thinking, but she's more like, can you look at the...
So Kit will pass the time looking at the tanges on the lid and wondering if he can fix those somehow. I mean, people were Larkin Daniels' thing, so he'll get them to deal with the people.
So, Smeesh, is that frustrating your feeling that people aren't paying attention to the thing that they should? It's what an ST feels with players.
Yeah. So she realizes he's distracted. She's like, this is one of your things. Is there any evidence around of blood? Or because she won't disturb anything and have a better look until she's sure that there's nothing else lying around.
Okay. If you want to have a proper, thorough look at the alleyway, it will be another check because you're checking the broader scene. It can be it will be investigation plus intelligence to check it.
Is Kit just fixing or tidying his stuff while I'm looking around?
He hasn't
what do you do?
Brought anything. He hasn't brought anything to fix plastics, so he'll just wait.
Okay. There is a very small smattering of blood. It's something that you pick up on more through your nasal sense than anything else, especially now that you've got the blush going and you're breathing. It's not just a sensation you get when you force air into your lungs so that you can expel it to speak. You actually do catch that scent, and it's very potent to you as a kindred. And it's very, very, very thin. Whoever this person was did not die here, because there's far too little blood for that. But they did have droplets come from their body when they were taken to this bin. And as you move progressively, foot by foot, closer towards this fence, you notice that there is, on the very top of the fence, right where there's the iron bar, one of the sharp spurs from the actual chain link itself, which jets out, has a bit of burnt flesh, very small bit, dangling from it. So whoever this was pulled up and over the fence and moved to this bin.
I'll point that out. Kit, see, try and catch his attention a bit.
Okay,
I know the lock is more important, but
Kit will come and check the fence and see. So, obviously, and have a look the other side, see if you can see anything on the other side of the fence.
Okay. There is, on the very far side of the fence, where the alley turns off again, is where it meets the street. So,
okay.
But it's not the street, which is part of your domain. It's the street on the eastern side of the domain. Because at the moment you are on the very farthest eastern edge point. So it looks like someone has come off of the edge of where you guys habitually set up your security for the domain, come in, gone over the fence, dropped this body, and gone back out. So where you're looking without going over the fence, you can't see anything but the edge of this building. And then where it curves off to go off to the street.
okay. So the first thing she'll do then is she'll ask Kit, and she'll make sure that she's very clear. Just, can you keep an eye out for just one minute?
Okay.
Make sure nobody comes out from the restaurant. Anything else? Do you mind?
Kit will check his watch and then nods. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I've got a minute.
Because there are two doors, which is a good thing to note. There are two doors which lead out into this alley, which connects both buildings. The takeaway is open. The restaurant is not.
I'll be quick about this then. And I mean, Lark looks a little disheveled, a little bohemian. She might not look that out of place dumpster diving. She will then have a look inside and will try and pull over one of the bags to just get a slightly better look to see if she can see anything else. Because if somebody's... I won't say it. I have thoughts about what this is.
Okay. So, you begin... the moment you're satisfied that Kit is no longer just staring at his watch, but is actually keeping a rough eye on the door, you pull yourself up so that you're actually on the edge of the bin and begin reaching in, and you grab the bin which is closest connected to this arm and push it aside, and it rolls down this heap, and then it emerges from it emerges what looks to be an upper arm, the forearm. Most of the muscle of the bicep, which is burnt down, so the ligaments are just all that's left. And then there's the skin, very, very, very thin at this point, connected to the bone, attached to a shoulder. And the bleached white skeleton underneath. And then more of a full torso, which itself is fully burnt. All aside from the lower end of a neck, which itself is mostly hidden underneath another bag. But you can tell that the skin from the neck up is not touched. It's almost like the burns stop there. So you can see skin.
Can't see a face.
Not without moving more beans.
A little bit more.
Okay, so again, you check, grab another bin and move it. And you can see a mop of red hair. And what looks to be somebody in their late 20s. Their expression is distant, unseeing, staring straight ahead. The moisture around their mouth is gone, fully burnt off. Although the actual skin itself is not touched, there is no fluid left in this body. And you can tell that from the condition of the eyes, certainly with the roll that you did earlier, because the eyes themselves are boiled. The heat of this, whatever was used to burn them, was significant. But underneath the collar of the neck, the rest of the torso is either third-degree burns or burns significantly. Almost like a different level of accelerant was used in each area. Or they were purposely burnt before the whole body was cast into it. So it's almost like they were based upon what little things you can see, someone tried to burn them in a way that kept them alive for a long period of time. Do a... What's your politics score?
0, I believe.
Okay. Right, so you continue looking and moving the body. Or not the body, sorry, the bags. And you can see the upper end of what looks to be jeans. Although the top of the fabric is burnt and frayed, the actual jeans themselves appear to be whole. So again, the burns were kept to the upper torso.
Okay. One quick question. Did you say male or female?
Male.
No. And then I'm going to do a quick rummage if I have enough of my minute left.
You're cutting it very close.
Am I? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly.
Okay. Because trust me, Kit's watching.
I know. Watch my words.
Okay, so what are you checking? You're moving a bit more.
I mean, I have...
Because there's limited what you can do at the moment without physically touching the body.
That's fine. I'm basically fishing into the pocket to see if there's anything in there.
Okay.
Like, I doubt somebody would be murdered and left out with their full wallet with information, but who knows?
Okay. So you begin trying to move him, and it's difficult to do because of the angle that he's at. The pocket that you can access is empty, but you can't get to the other one without trying to shift, like wedging your hand between bin bag and... Are you going to stop? Okay, so you stop. Okay. But it's not only because, this is a dead body, and even as a kindred at this point in your life, it's not something you're used to seeing. Certainly not in this condition. You kind of envy Kit in that he hasn't yet seen the full extent. You certainly envy Daniel that they haven't seen the extent of the burns, because as reviled as you feel, your beast is hating this, and it is not afraid to share that discomfort with you. Kindred are terrified of reminders of their own mortality, and you are looking at a stark reminder. This may not be kindred based upon the burns you've seen, but you can only imagine what your torso would look like if you had been the one on the recipient end of this. Right. And your beast is happy to remind you of that, because every single instinct you have is telling you to get the fuck out of that alleyway.
I will go back to Kit. I will very quietly relay some light details, and then follow up by saying, this is a problem, I think, to have so close to home.
Yes, yeah. Cut the lock straight through. I fixed that, but the lid's bent. I don't know how I can fix that bit.
Okay. She doesn't laugh, by the way. I laugh.
Okay. It's worth noting that the lock that Kit has put on, the people that use the bin will not be able to access the bin. So it's only a matter of time before they try and get through that lock themselves. Mm-hmm. Which is a thought that occurs to you, Kit, and you're not liking the idea of having to come back to this bin again and finding a lock's been broken and replaced with a lock that's not yours. But it doesn't look like Lark shares your priorities.
No. And... we're going to need to deal with the lock, which you have handled, but also what's inside. Sooner than later, I think. Because leaving this here could cause trouble.
Deal with it? How?
Good question. Maybe we need Daniel. No response from him?
Kit's just looking blank. He's trying to work out how you deal with a body. It's not something he's thought about before, really.
It is, quite fortunately, something that not many of you have had to deal with.
Yeah.
For a city that is constantly at the strife, one of the, depending on how you look at, most people would look at it, silver lining of having the Second Inquisition be such a very real threat is the fact that the actual skirmishes between the Anarchs and the Kindred and the number of fatalities involving Kine has dropped significantly out of necessity. It's not something, even for those of you that have been alive, over 15 years, been dead, for over 15 years plus. It's not something you've had to deal with regularly, certainly not recently. You've all been quite careful in how you've dealt with everything. Not all of you have become that involved in politics, which is probably, a reason for some of you why you've lasted this long. And those of you that have become involved in politics have just been very careful about how you've managed things. So this is not something you've dealt with often or had to deal with directly. And that is becoming strikingly aware to the both of you now that you actually think, fuck, we have a dead body in our domain.
Yeah. I'm thinking that, I don't know, maybe Daniel has a favor or something. I'm going to try something really quickly if you want to head back to the Haven, and I'll meet you there.
Okay. Do you need the key?
You keep the key.
Kit will do as he's told then, put the key in his pocket, and he's going to head back to Daniel.
Okay. So as Kit begins heading back, and Lark is on the verge of trying whatever Lark is about to try, we're going to take a quick break, guys. I do apologize to everyone for the lateness of the start, obviously with the technical issues, but we will take the 10 minutes, and then we'll plow straight back through. I want to see what Lark's got planned. So
a few questions for you guys.
Awesome.
And feel free to just chuck any more in chat. So from Phil, he's asking Titus, how does it feel to be back in the ST chair?
I will express that in interpretive dance. Yeah, it's great. I missed it.
The people listening to the podcast, they're missing out.
Yeah, oh, sorry. How do you explain interpretive dance in words?
That's the problem. I don't think you can.
Oh, shit. It's awesome. It's amazeballs. There you go. It's amazeballs. I've missed it.
And then for the players, if you have anything for inspiration that went behind your characters, starting with Sass.
Oh boy, I've never played a Toreador before, and I wanted to step away from the usual style of artist, like painter or singer or someone who actually makes art. Daniel is more of a scientist. He's a researcher. He sees beauty in science rather than the arts.
Nice.
So I can't really remember with Kit. I think I wanted to make a cat burglar, like a proper old-fashioned climbing the building into the window cat burglar, and also I haven't played Malkavian for quite some time, and they are my favourite clan, really. So I think Kit came from that. So
outnumbered Smeesh.
Apparently, room full of STs too. I similarly never had a chance to play Gangrel, even though it's up there as one of my favorites. And usually I try and draw on something that I personally have a lot of passion for, and in this case, she has sort of a supernatural obsession, and that's a lot for me to draw on, which is good fun. Yeah.
Nice. And what did you guys have for breakfast?
Banana.
I had a sesame seed bagel with cheese.
I had pancake, and I also had some toast.
I had far too much coffee and some bickies.
Yes.
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 Cookies for everybody else.
Bickies. We will make everyone say bickies.
one who just came in from Elthane's. Who do you think between you will be the first one to die?
Well, heads up.
Well,
You're already technically dead, but
wow.
The two Gangrel died in the last game, so I don't know what my chances are.
Well, that just means I either go for a hat trick or I don't touch you.
It's true.
Mhm.
I'm safe.
What makes you think only one of them would die? Or one of them would die at a time?
Good point.
We'll
If we're
all
going
die
along this
together.
train of
We'll-
thought,
Yeah.
Oh dear.
everyone's safe. Everyone's kept in a protective bubble because me and Titus can't touch them.
No, we're all on the same ride. We're all going there.
Okay, I'll leave you with this last one. It's just Fermis. How long is that broken bin lock going to stick with you?
Oh, quite a long time. I mean, who just shears off a lock like that? I didn't even try to pick it.
Yeah.
And it's your bin, too. So.
Yeah.
It's 2021 and a miss is still trying to fix the bin.
I mean, it's just not all gone wrong. I mean, there's a new lock, but people that need to use it haven't got the key, so they're going to break that one, and the lid's all bent, and it's just...
And there's the minor inconvenience of a corpse in
Just
there.
like, can we?
I mean, it's not where you put corpses.
Sorry,
It shouldn't be in there. It's not where you put corpses.
I'm glad that we agree on that.
I feel like every time that Lark has one of those moments, we need to subtitle internalized screaming. I feel like it's going to happen a lot.
Cool. And with that, I'll leave you get back to it.
Sweet.
Do you mind if I just take a quick 1 minute?
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
So we've still got another 4
Yeah,
minutes?
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Ready.
Excellent.
You have
Awesome.
the floor.
I'm wondering, Titus, if you can give us maybe just a little bit of more flavour of Manchester and during this time. Just maybe let the viewers and people know just a bit more about the setting, if possible.
Sure. Okay, so let's just grab my notes because they're all over the place because it wouldn't be me if they weren't. Okay, so as we know, we have the conflict that is currently going on between both Carminehurst and Prince Madison. And by and large, the Camarilla, through Madison, has actually managed to retake a sizable portion of the domain that was lost. And the reason why this has become more of a stalemate, as I mentioned before, is that despite the war between the two of them, Operation Antigen down in London, which is now in effect, and First Light's operations have gained a fair amount of the attention from the Camarilla. It's not difficult for them to grasp upon just how big a threat First Light actually is. So even though Manchester itself is largely untouched by First Light, it's a big enough kick in the teeth to Kindred Society as a whole, where it has slowed down the fighting on both sides of things. So in the wake of several of the Warrens going dark across England, more and more Kindred are being caught and destroyed by the Second Inquisition outside of Manchester, which means that the Kindred in Manchester have begun clanking down on both the first and second masquerades. Both sides of it. The Anarchs are doing it just as firmly and solidly in Manchester as they are for the Camarilla, which isn't normal across the Anarchs. The Anarchs tend to be just, keep the masquerade and stay the fuck out of my area and we'll be fine. But in this, Hearst does clamp down on the second masquerade. The loss of Shreknet and the isolationist approach to the Camarilla has done little to impact upon the war for Manchester, as both sects have felt the sting of mortal hunters in equal measure. Not outright hunting in the sense of First Light, but the threat of has kept people on their toes. It's here that the younger kindred are at a disadvantage, however, as the older brethren are more experienced in existing without technology being a mandatory tool in achieving their aims. So although the younger kindred have more of a presence on there, because a lot of the oldest kindred in Manchester have fallen victim to the beckoning. So, for example, even Prince Madison himself is suspected to be no older than about 8th or 9th generation. There are a few kindred that are alleged to be older, but it's Madison's efforts during the war which have guaranteed him the place of prominence and the reason why everybody listens to him. He is also well known within the Camarilla, or at least those that are politically savvy in the south of England, as being the mentor for Sabine Wick. So he is the kindred that is responsible for raising Sabine when her sire went missing. So that has also gained him a measure of renown since his ascendancy to the princedom, in that the London prince that replaced Emrys is someone that dotes on him, at least in terms of being willing to listen to advice. So we'll see how this turns out.
Well,
hi, Frass. All right. Okay, so just gonna try and bring back up my video. Hello, everyone. Oh, everyone is back. Sorry, my video went minimalized. So, hi, everybody. We are back. Don't know why I always say hi. I've never left. Okay, so I know, right? I just want to gangrel cat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm jealous. About 2 minutes into the show, Whiskey knocked over a humongous potted plant just to show her dominance, I think.
You just hear that.
There was a crash at one point. That's what that was.
Hi, gangrel.
Oh, gangrel cat.
So, we'll go straight back into it, guys. Kit, you ran off back in the direction. Well, not ran off. At speed, headed back in the direction of the communal haven. What is it, Kit, that, Lark, that you were planning on doing?
She wants to, this is very concerning to her. She wishes Kit was a little more worried. She's going to choose a corner somewhere slightly away from the alley. And she's going to use a discipline, actually.
Okay.
Which will... She wants to call a crow from the area.
A crow?
She wants to use Feral Whisper. She's permitted to choose a summon a type of animal, and for her it's crows.
Okay.
It would normally be free for her Familis, but in this case she left her behind.
Yep.
So it will cost her. And what she wants to do is call one that's around here and see if it noticed anything.
Okay. Right.
They're good with faces, so...
Yes, they are. Okay, so this is Feral Whispers, so it will be manipulation plus... What? Manipulation or charisma plus animalism?
So... are you choosing, or do I get to choose?
No, it'll be charisma plus animalism for summoning animals, which is technically what you're doing.
So manipulation plus animalism, and
sorry. So it will be manipulation plus animalism, because technically you are getting them to do a service. You're getting them to report to you. So it'll be manipulation plus animalism.
Yeah.
So I'll get the results of that. I'll cut back to these guys, and then I'll cut back to you. So keep an eye on the results. So Kit, this is probably the quickest you've gone back towards the communal haven. Again, you're not going without caution. The lock breaker might still be out there, which is actually a very real concern for you, because it's difficult for you to get over the fact that one of your the meticulous things you put in place to ensure the safety of the domain has been disturbed. And whilst other people might not recognize the semblance in such a small thing, you do, because you know on an instinctive level, and it's been impressed upon you, that even the smallest things can mean a hell of a lot in the grander scheme, and they might not get it, but you do. It's
worrying.
Yes, and with this in mind, because in fact you're pretty certain that, thinking back on it, that a broken lock is quite symbolic of something else that's been wearing on your mind for a while. But you can't recall for the life of you what it was. You know it's big. pretty certain that she mentioned it to you previously, but you cannot remember what. And this is plaguing your mind as you're weaving in and out of people, head down, just going straight forward, until you turn off onto the road that leads towards this communal haven. And Daniel, you hear again that as the door scrapes and opens, but it's only Kit that steps back inside. Lark's not behind him. And as he brings back down the door, because there's always the agreement that door gets shut straight away, what do you do? Ooh, you're muted.
Thank you.
No worries.
There's a lot of background noise here, so I tend to mute it.
Yeah.
I will stand up from my desk and kind of move towards Kit. Where's Lark?
She's still with the bin. She said she had something she wanted to try, and I should come back.
Did she find out anything else about the contents?
The body. There's a guy in there. I don't know. She didn't say much.
Did you look in and see, or?
This is news to you, by the way, that there's a body in there.
Really? I thought he had come to us initially and said that.
I thought he just mentioned a broken lock. Did you mention a body?
Yeah, briefly.
Oh, he did. Apologies.
And that was why I sent two, because I was like, it would be a bad idea for a guy.
That is true. Shut up,
dumpster diving.
Sorry.
Can you describe it to me? Was it a woman?
Lark looked. She didn't say I should look.
What did you see when you looked in?
Well, there was the tanges on the bin lids that are supposed to hold it shut on the insides. Someone had bent them back. They just pulled the lid open, and you could see the strain marks on the plastic.
Does it take a lot of strength to do something like that?
Well, some, yeah. I mean, it's not. It's plastic. You'd have to be strong, but not that strong.
Could a kind have torn the bin open like that?
Yeah, it's a strong one.
What about, how did you know there was a dead body? What did you see of it when you looked?
Oh, there was the hand sticking out of the bin bags inside.
How did you know it was dead?
Well, it wasn't moving, and it was all burnt, and you could see some of the bone, so I assume it was dead. Lark didn't say it wasn't dead.
Burnt. Terribly burned if there was bone showing, is what you're saying.
Well, burnt, yeah.
Did Lark say she would be coming back soon?
She said she wanted to try something.
Do me a favor, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Roll intelligence plus politics.
Kit does actually have a politics.
Okay, then you can roll it as well.
Politics. Does my specialty apply?
No, it does not.
I got 2 successes.
Okay.
I got 4 successes.
Okay, right, okay. So, Kit, it's very difficult for you to focus on anything other than the luck. The burns are significant. It's hard for you to ignore that because your beast certainly isn't letting you ignore it. But it's not overriding the issue you've got with the symbolism behind that broken log. It's far more worrying to you, Daniel. And you will need to confirm whether or not it is what you suspect. But you do know that extreme burns as a means of torture and execution is something that is utilized by the anarchs neighboring your domain, which is headed by an individual which is known in Camarilla circles as the Cook. His actual name, before he joined the Anarchs, is... Just hunting down for you. So the name of this individual is Colin Patrick Finch. He joined the Anarchs when they returned. He was one of the young kindred that did.
And leaving burned bodies is something of a calling card?
It's not something he does often. It's certainly not something that you've had to put up with, but he has gained that name because when the fighting was going on and they were pushing for territory in the initial, whenever they'd actually capture a Camarilla kindred, it was a means of gaining status and making it clear to the Anarchs that he had actually done that he'd been involved in a skirmish by burning kindred in this way. But it wasn't just open flame, because anybody could do that. It was torturing for information through fire and prolonging the process. Not only is it formidable because, well, no kindred likes the idea of that fate, but because he had the willpower to be able to execute that method of interrogation and execution when he himself is subject to the same instinctual terror of fire.
As far as I'm aware, is this something he's ever done to a mortal or only to other kindred?
You don't know. You know the reason behind the name, you know the name behind the nickname. You know that this individual is based south of your domain. It is one of the neighbors that you were forewarned about by your sire when you took up there. Also, you have seen him at court before he turned Anarch. So you do know him. You've never spoken to him, but you know him. He was one of the more verbal ones that was punished, but not in a permanent fashion by Prince Wallace. Before Wallace was killed and Madison took power. But by that point, he was already so disenchanted with the Camarilla that when Madison took power and offered the chance for power to younger kindred, provided they pulled their weight, Colin Finch just didn't believe it. Was one of the first people to jump to Carminehurst. But you can't, it's Burns. Without seeing it yourself, it's hard for you to say. But that's the first name that comes to mind.
Right. Did you see anything else in that area?
No, nothing else had been moved. Even the bin hadn't been moved. Whoever cut the lock, they did it without moving the bin. And then lifted the lid without moving the bin.
Cut the lock, lifted the lid, dumped a body inside without shifting the position of the bin.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes, very, 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 very sure.
That seems oddly precise of a thing to do.
Yes.
You said it was your bin. I imagine it is one of the things that you check regularly.
Yes.
I know you do your rounds. Do you think this is for you specifically?
It's the lock. Yes. Yeah. The lock. It's a thing. Yes. I can't remember, but the lock like that. It's important. It's very important.
A broken lock. But you don't know why? A message of some kind for you specifically?
It could be.
One of our neighbors may be responsible. Without more evidence, I couldn't say, but he is known to inflict that kind of damage, but so far as I know, only on kindred.
Do you think it was a kindred in there?
I doubt it. Burns on a kindred would look very different from burns on a kine. Did it look the way it looks when fire burns us?
I don't know for sure. Possibly, possibly not. No, I don't know.
Maybe we should wait for Lark and see if she has more information with whatever it is that she's doing.
Right, yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Kit will go and sit on the edge of the sofa.
Okay. It is frustrating to you, Kit, that people don't seem to understand the significance of the lock. And it takes you a moment to kind of remind yourself it's to be expected that they don't. In fact, as far as you're concerned, in your entire existence, there's only been one person that ever seems to understand the symbolism, seems to understand your obsession with them, and seems to encourage it. And not for the first time, you end up feeling that instinctual gut reaction that you do wish that she was there. Meanwhile, what did you roll, Lark?
I had rolled 2 successes, and then my rouse check was also a success, which floors me.
Getting good rolls.
I'm worried.
Why? Okay, so you begin focusing. You know there are crows in this area, and there are crows in this area because you've made it that way. There are more circling the extent of the domain than perhaps in most any other area in London.
Manchester.
Could be London as well. Manchester. Good call. It's not going to be the first time I do that. I apologize. And you focus on them, and you can feel the blood beginning to pulse throughout your body as you're making that mental connection and reaching out with your senses to lull them in. And it's a sensation you've had before personally. And it's weird to be on the reverse end of it because you felt this kind of pull before from your sire. It's not something you experience often, but all of the times that you've gone to visit your sire has never been because he's made a call. It's always because you've instinctively known that he needed you. And you've always gone. And on being on the pushing end of this rather than the receiving end of it is weird. More so when you know that it's working, because you can feel that connection becoming less taut. It's like a rubber band string that's being pulled closer and closer. And then as you kind of open your eyes and you see the blush of red that's going throughout your now non-grey arms, you look up and you can see 2 crows. One settled on top of the bin, and it's kind of twisting this way and that, and then jutting slightly closer. And there's another one which is over the ridge of the door, which leads in towards the still operating takeaway. And they both turn their head and look at you with one eye. And they both chirp to one another, and you can't quite understand what they're saying, but you get the general impression that they've both come, and the immediate sensation is that they smell food. But then one of them keys in that you're there and then just stops and just watches you. Its head canted to the side as it stares. So what is it you're asking?
She had moved just slightly away from Ben and hunkered down against the wall. She will ask, did you see who put the man in the box? I'm not actually sure if this is mental or if she says it.
Okay.
It just has two-way communications.
I would assume that since you don't have all specs, that it'd have to be verbal. I would assume so. It's how we did it on Thames anyway. So,
yeah, I have first level aspects.
Okay, I'd say that it's part and parcel. I think that you can say minimal words, but you try and convey meaning, unless you've rolled really low. So they twist their head and turn back. Their beak turns towards the bin. One of them that's settled on the bin just jabs it once with the plastic. And then the other one, who's not quite so distracted with the the overwhelming smell of food and burnt corpse that's lulling out from under that twisted plastic gap. Is a slight ruffle of the feathers as they perk. And then its eye just makes contact and it twists its head, and you get a sensation as it squawks at you as of 3. And you can't tell whether or not that's because the leg lifts and taps 3 times, or whether it's because 3 feathers remain dominant after the rest settle. But that's the sensation that you get in your head, that 3.
Okay. And so that is to the answer, did you see who put the man in the box? They said
yes.
3? Okay. Okay. She will then ask, during day or night?
Then again, as the feathers and then settle, and it turns its eye towards the moon.
Okay.
And then looks back at you.
Okay. How long can I normally hold their attention? I think it just says once.
Not too long. It seems like
Not
one of them you've already lost the attention of, because it's beginning to. And a very small part of you realizes in horror that not only is this bird trying to perk its head through this very small gap of where the plastic's been wrenched, it's starting to jab onto the bin, and there's very slight dents where its beak is hitting.
Okay. Last question.
It looks horrified.
Yeah. I didn't do it. It wasn't me.
This is what you wanted to try. So the other one is still looking at you, but its head is kind of twisting towards noise as it's trying to focus.
Great. So she'll ask one final question. I'm not sure how complicated I can make these.
The intelligence isn't going to change for the bird, so...
No. She'll ask, what kind of face? So she's looking to see if they can describe at all anybody who came by. Yeah, I know it's a weird question.
It's staring at you for a long moment, and it seems like its leg is kind of like twitched, as though it's poised to like tap or move, and it can't seem to decide. And then it just puts it down, and then just furls its feathers, and then puts them back, and then just stares at you again.
Too complicated. But it's still there?
It's still there.
Okay, and I'll say new face or old.
No.
Stray cat in the alley.
So there, as its feathers begin ruffling out and its wings expand, and then it brings it back in, you get a rush of an almost... It's weird because it's different sensations that you're getting it, and as the scent hits you, it's an unfamiliar scent. But it's not a human scent. It's almost like... It's almost like a natural repugnant smell. It's almost like the bird has just wafted it at you.
Okay.
But it's so fleeting that it's just... But it's so fleeting but so contrasting to the area that you're currently in.
Yeah.
That you don't know whether or not you certainly would have caught it if you hadn't had Blush of Life up. You don't know. Or whether or not it's just something coming from the connection with the bird.
Okay.
But then its head twists towards the bin and it flips over towards the bin where the other one is. They squawk at each other and then start trying to peck down into the thing. After a few minutes of trying and general cawing, one takes...
Okay.
Then the other one just twists on the bin, stares at you one last time, and then...
Okay. Pros. Okay. I'm going to take this information and we'll head back to the Haven. I'll take a different route to get back.
Okay.
But we'll go and see the others.
Okay. Remind me, Kit, did you lock the bin?
No.
Okay. So, Lark begins moving off. You're going to take a different route. So it takes you a bit longer to get back than normal. But But that's perfectly fine as far as you're concerned. Your mind is elsewhere. So by the time you actually do manage to tread the route back towards the bin, even though you're watching people, you're still going through what the crow said, what you've seen, and trying to nail down that very, very strong sense of nausea, which is riled up within you at the thoughts of that burnt body. And you think the only reason that it's not come on as strong as it is because what you were looking at was a human. And as horrific as that is, it's not quite as stark a reminder to you as what happens when you would get burned. It doesn't matter that you've never physically been burned yourself as a kindred. Your beast is happy to give you more than a few impressions of what it'd be like, so you don't need it to have happened. But as you're focusing on this, you come back, and as you two are waiting, far too long passes before that opens up again, and Lark ducks in underneath, and the door pulls back in.
So, what did you find?
First of all, we have a problem.
I'm getting that sense, yes.
Yes. What do you know about making bodies disappear?
The kind of he gives you is just like sort of unimpressed shading towards offended.
It's just fun to ask him these questions sometimes. So she'll...
Did you get a better look at...
She'll tilt her head a bit and go, no idea who this unlucky bugger was. But I know that he was moved at night, possibly by 3 people. Kindred kind, I don't know. And other than that, I've got nothing. I don't know. It's not a kindred in there.
Human.
Maybe. Probably.
What did they look like? Just
she'll describe...
in case I need to pass this information along to anyone else,
Yeah.
or just worth knowing.
With some nausea in her gut, she will relay as best she can a description of the guy in there.
Okay.
And she'll shrug and say, could you go? Feels like a weird thing to drop in territory and just leave. This is our problem now. Regardless
I take it you described
sorry.
to me.
No,
I take it you described to me how the burning was done and where.
Yep. She'll go into the best detail she can.
And that's how you know it. That's what cements it for you. Because the reason why the cook would always leave the faces untouched is because he wanted people to be able to identify who it was. Because there is nothing which incites Camarilla, which now that he's done this, does convince you that it is not only Kindred that he's done it to. Because for Kindred, he doesn't really have much of a choice. You burn them, they turn to ash. But Kindred were not the only things that were utilizing that conflict. There was also ghouls, there was also human agents. There was also contacts, there was allies, there was retainers. And whenever the cook would do this, he'd make sure that the face was still recognizable so that you could identify who he'd hit. Because to him there's no point in hitting your enemy and them not knowing it was you, because he wanted them to know it was him. And it's the reason why Carmine was so quick to take him up when he left the Camarilla, because he was willing to do this. And the other thing is that the description that you had of the face, just do a quick wits plus... We'll say wits plus politics.
Okay.
Or intelligence plus politics. It's entirely up to you which one.
Okay, I'll go with intelligence.
Your specialty will apply.
Oh, good. gonna spend a willpower on this.
Sure. So just make sure you made a note somewhere.
Yep. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. There's not an awful lot to go off of through the description of the head alone. But the two things that strike you in particular was the red hair, the shortness of it, and the placement of a birthmark on the neck, as well as a mole on the face, and you recognize those two features from court. This individual is someone that you know to be called Zachary Pritchard, who is a ghoul for a Nosferatu called Tracy Backer, who is a quite high, similar to yourself. It's what you probably, as an easy frame of reference, liken to a Nosferatu equivalent of yourself. Someone that has risen quite high in the clan and within the sect through participating in the conflict, but not directly. It is someone that you have not necessarily spoken to at length. It's certainly not someone high enough that it's going to cause outright uproar in the Camarilla, but it is someone with enough standing where if they wanted to push, they could cause problems, because as far as I'm concerned, this is in your domain, but it's not your ghoul. So there is a whole host of potential issues which are springing to your mind, as well as a few potential opportunities which are following like a fucking train track straight through your mind, which is how your mind works, because that is how you've been, for want of a better word, conditioned to work.
So the ghoul's name is Zachary Pritchard, and the Nosferatu's name was what, sorry?
Tracy Backer.
After sort of Lark has described all of this, Daniel is quiet, and you can see the gears turning, and while he's thinking, he'll take his glasses off and take out a cloth and slowly clean them while he is thinking, and then put them back on and look up at the other two. We have a dead ghoul on our hands. A Nosferatu's ghoul.
Someone you know?
I know of her. She occupies a similar position in court to myself. Not a personal associate of mine. I don't imagine she will look kindly on a servant of hers ending up in Kit's dumpster.
I'll glance at Kit. Is there any reaction?
Kit will be thinking, should we put the body in her dumpster? Would that be better?
I doubt it. So no, don't do that, please.
Okay.
On top of that, I suspect it may be an anarch. Again, neighboring our territory. I can't recall if Lark was there when I told Kit that. But I'll explain to them this cook who is known to deal with bodies in this manner. And that this is very much in his style.
You both know the name. No, you don't know the name the cook, but you do know the name
Colin
Finch, because you both would have not necessarily met him at court, but you were all embraced and in Manchester before he acted Anarch. Not necessarily before Madison took power, but before he became an active member of the Anarchs. So you know the name. Just, the cook sounds like a shop somewhere or something like that. It's not something you'd associate, but now, your mind immediately leaps to details about, oh, okay, morbid, but I get it.
Whether they're dropped here because somebody has issue with us, or because somebody's trying to draw attention to this place, I kind of don't care right now. We have to make that go away.
Given that it is the goal of a Camarilla Nosferatu, it may just as well be to incite infighting if it's discovered that body was found here. That's assuming that Tracy blames it on us. On the other hand, it could be of assistance to let her know, because what was done to this ghoul and by whom is valuable information. And no one wants to see such things done to their own ghouls, obviously. But it's hard to say whether or not she would appreciate being told, or if this is something that should be hidden from her. Do I know this Nosferatu's manner well? Is she known to have a temper or be impulsive?
She's not had a temper that you've witnessed. I mean, all kindred can have a temper, but she is more of a kind of... Whereas you've managed to charm your way into the upper echelons at the early point, Tracy does not have that kind of social grace. She has it purely because she will get things done when she's told to. She is affectionately known as the dog of the Camarilla, and it's a title she doesn't dispute, because as far as she's concerned, she's told to do something, she does it, and the Camarilla then leaves her alone until they need her again. And she deals with things her own way, because as far as Madison's concerned, when he needs to rely on her, he can. And Madison is someone that will keep the people that are useful and find a way of escorting those that aren't useful out to keep the Camarilla sex song. The one other thing that does appeal to you, or does note towards you, is regardless of how Tracy views it, this, whether it was a targeted attack on one person, whether it was put here to cause infighting, whatever, the other thing is having an Anarch wander into your territory and drop a body is... it says a lot. And how it's dealt with by the Camarilla, as in by you as representatives of the Camarilla, will also say a lot. This is something obviously that was going to go through your mind, Daniel, not necessarily through the others, who are more concerned with the immediate pressing issue of, fuck, we have a body. Whereas you're thinking of the long-term effects of this, which is, you've been given this area because you've been very good at talking. Now, when there's an issue, if you do not handle it in the right way, then talking is all you're going to be good for. And you'll find that the grace that you've been given, namely your own domain, and the ear of more affluent kindred at this young age, will promptly vanish. Maybe that's what's going through your head. That is what you are thinking, because it says a lot about how you deal with any situation, and this is not exactly someone walking in, mouthing off and walking out.
Yeah. How we respond to this will color how the rest of the court sees us, assuming they find out about it. Kit, did you put a new lock on the
Yes.
bin?
Yeah, there's new lock on there.
Is it locked right now?
No. No, I took the key back. Lark said I should bring the key back.
I think that you should probably go and lock the bin while we try to figure out what to do about this, because the last thing we need right now is whoever owns that bin finding what's inside. Although this does need to be dealt with quickly. Who is the bin used by a business, I assume?
Yes, yeah, 2.
Do you know which ones?
The restaurant and the takeaway.
Are they open?
The restaurant's closed and the takeaway is open.
Do they have a schedule for when they take out their rubbish?
Yes.
End of the night.
The end of the night when they close.
What time would that be?
About an hour.
Yes, so in about an hour. Pause.
It's very rare that you hear Daniel curse. Very quietly, you will hear him curse, just like, fuck.
So we need to put the body somewhere else. Is that what you want?
Doesn't have to
Boy.
be us.
What doesn't have to be us moving it? I don't have any such resources at my disposal.
Sounds like we don't have much time. We could
No, we don't.
try and move this, which I doubt would go well. I doubt we could do that discreetly unless we want to throw it down a manhole quietly somehow, and I don't see that happening. Or we, and this could be a terrible idea, inform the Dominator. Because that clan is good at making things go away.
We could just put it back in was it Colin's territory, surely. Put it in a bin there.
Without prior planning and far more time than we have, moving a body, especially one in the state that you have described to me, is somewhat of a risk if you are seen by anyone.
Well, don't have to be seen by anyone.
Can you move things the size of a body and not be seen? And the dead body not be seen at the same time?
Probably not.
I appreciate
Be
the thought.
careful. What if we made the body smaller?
Sorry. Sorry. That would take more time than we might have.
No.
Well,
I don't. Under certain circumstances, I can see the logic of making it smaller. We don't have that kind of time. You kind of notice Daniel looks a little off-put.
how long does it take to make
Talking
a
about
body
making a
smaller?
body smaller.
Too long. More time than we have.
But how
Like
how
I'm
long's
a
that?
little green around the edges, sort of, in my facial expression. But how obvious was that body when you first looked in there? Was it just part of it showing? Could you cover it up more so at the very least when they take out their rubbish this evening, they don't see it?
Crossed my mind, but a body is still fairly obvious regardless.
It's
To burn
worth
it?
noting. It's not a massive difference, but it's still worth noting. It's an hour until they close. They're going to be doing their cleaning jobs and stuff prior to the close, but that doesn't mean that the moment it hits that time, they're going to walk out and check the bins out. It might take 10, 15 minutes past that, but you don't know that for certain. You just
One way or
know
another.
that if they're going to come out, it's going to be around that time because they need to take the bins up before they can leave. Unless they're really that kind of place that doesn't. Which, as far as you're aware, they're not. And Kit knows they're not. Because he schedule keeps things like this. So there's no point in him turning the bin to make sure that nobody can walk past it if they're just going to come out 10 minutes later and move it back and then put the bin in. So he's aware that they do come out. It varies when, but it will close in about 10. At about 10. Not, sorry, 9.
A
9.
place you could put a body for a while without it being found.
Pardon?
Does Kit know of a place you could put a body where it wouldn't be found, at least for a night or two?
He could try getting it down a manhole, but it'd involve moving it out of the alley. The alternative, at least in terms of getting it out of the alley, is the potential to put it into a car, which would mean pulling the car or similar up to the street and getting it into the car without being noticed. In terms of a safe place to go, there is one option that appeals to you. It's an option. The restaurant is closed. There is an entrance to the restaurant in that alley. You don't know if they have CCTV.
Okay. So we could put the body somewhere else for a minute until we work out where you want to go. You are muted.
Yeah.
Where would you put it?
Well, we could put it in a car maybe and take it somewhere, or the restaurant's closed. We could put it in there. I mean, we'd have to move it again later, but we could put it in there for a while.
It had already trailed some blood getting into that bin. I feel like that would be messy. Do any of us have a car? I don't.
We're not putting a dead ghoul in my trunk. And this said with absolute dead seriousness, too.
It wouldn't be in there for long.
It's not the point.
Well,
So what, we leave it, and then eventually it is found, and then it's traced back to us somehow, and suspicion falls on our heads. I don't like any of this. I just want to get rid of it. Can we just set the thing on fire? Get rid of the rest of the evidence?
No.
She says with a little sarcasm, but not really.
Kate, do you really think that you could get that body out of that bin and into that restaurant without being seen?
well, as long as someone watches the takeaway, perhaps I can do it without being heard.
Okay, so our biggest concern is being seen by either the staff or customers at the takeaway because they are in closest proximity to where that would be going on.
Yeah.
Are there security cameras in the restaurant?
I don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
I mean, but they won't be checked till the morning.
In a situation like this, the most I can contribute is to patronize the takeaway and distract the staff with my charming self. Otherwise, moving dead corpses is not exactly a specialty. But you are not wrong. We can't leave it there, and that is one of many terrible options available, but potentially the best.
Are
Mark.
we going then?
Yeah, just to clarify, we're moving this to buy ourselves some time.
Yeah,
Can't
the
think of anything else
restaurant
to do
will
with
be
that.
open in the morning. We can't leave it there.
No, we can't. It's to buy time.
I just start thinking, do we have any kind of tarp in this place so when we move it doesn't make a mess?
Do you have any tarp? This is why I asked everyone to describe what it was like at the start.
Blankets, anything.
Just
if you do, it'll be quite a nice tarp.
Yeah.
It won't be a nice tarp anymore.
Oh.
Let me just double check something about
tarp stats.
Tarp stats. Okay. Okay. If you have one, you could use it. But say goodbye to the tarp.
I wouldn't want it back.
It's probably a star-covered tarp as well.
A what?
A star-covered tarp.
Oh, yes. It would. Oh.
It's a space tarp.
It's
It's the best kind of tarp, Daniel. But you know what won't go well with it? Burnt flesh.
Do I see this conflict in his face? You're like, are you okay?
Yeah, you see kind of a look of pain trying to make a decision about something. Eventually he'll say he does have a tarp. In that way of a person that would, it's like you're looking for something to break a window with, and it's like, I have this lovely piece of art that you could throw through the window. Truly though, does Daniel, given his sensitivity to politics and Camarilla goings on, do I think it is a good idea or not to inform that Nosferatu that we found her dead ghoul?
You've not had enough experience with us to know. The main question it's difficult because although you've tried to ingratiate yourself, you've mainly ingratiated yourself with people that are currently above you in the social ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Your rivals you've ignored by and large because rubbing elbows with the elders and the ancilla, such as they are, requires dedicated time and always paying attention and always tending to their needs. And you don't want them to mistakenly think that you are in league with the people that you're trying to step over.
Right.
Now, Tracy and you have never really spoken that much. She doesn't tend to go to court unless it's mandatory. But you do know that the kindred of the Camarilla think of her favorably as someone when it requires a swift hand. But you do not know how it will be perceived if your immediate response is to go running to another kindred. Even if your intention is not to let her deal with it, as someone that is politically savvy, your constant thought is, how will this be viewed?
Mm-hmm.
Because whilst there is flexibility for younger kindred to make leaps up the social ladder, it's just as easy to knock them back down to the bottom, because that keeps all of the Neonites hungry. That makes all of the Neonites want to work twice as hard to get back up. And so far, you've maintained your stance. You've maintained that place of power. And it makes your living nights exhausting.
I never asked for this. This issue, this problem, this dead ghoul. Oh boy.
So Kit will look at his watch and then say, so we have an hour and 6 minutes.
Neither of you has a vehicle.
Could get one.
Don't need one.
You could get one.
Yeah.
Could you get one that is sort of low-key enough to pull up into an alley like that and not be flashy or noticeable?
Yeah, till someone notices it missing, and then the police will be looking for it.
Because I cannot do something like that with my own car. That is too easily traced back to me. A stolen car, however. But how long would it take you to get a car?
Well, it depends on the car. You get an old one, a Golf or something. 20 seconds. Some of the newer ones, the electronic stuff, it takes a little longer.
There is a blink of reaction to 20 seconds, like, okay. Much faster than I expected him to answer.
It is worth noting, though, both entrances to these sector alleyways, all three of entrances, go out onto main roads. Main as in the main roads that go through the area, not main Manchester roads. So you can't pull in to the alleyway. You just need to stop beside the alleyway and shuttle it from the alleyway to the car. Because a car is not going to fit in the alleyway.
What's at the front of the restaurant?
Just the street. So particularly in the way that you entered in the area that is your domain into this alleyway is where the bus lanes are. Because it's where you saw the woman that you, for a moment, thought you recognized, but didn't.
We can get a car. Could put it by the alleyway. We could put it by the restaurant and go through there.
Do me a favor, Kit. Roll me Resolve plus Composure.
One success.
Okay. You think off the top of your head that based upon the number of times you've done the route, you think you know that if you time it just so that there is about 10 minutes to the hour when they will close, there will be about a 6 or 7 minute window when no buses are due. That was according to the previous schedule. You don't know if it's changed. But you know that there is a slight window in which, because no buses are due, the only thing you have to worry about is people waiting at the bus stops. But their attention is going to be on either end of the road. Not necessarily on the shop, especially given that the shop that you're looking at coming out from is the one that's closed.
So Kit will say this. So if we time it right, there'll be no bus for about 10 minutes. And hopefully there'll be no one at the bus stop. And if there is, they'll be looking the other way. So just before closing, we could go all the way through the restaurant and put it in the car. And if we're careful, no one will probably see.
Quick question. SD, we mentioned looking for CCTV earlier. Did you say there were some on street level?
The CCTV which covers the alleyway. The front of the alleyway.
But not the front of the restaurant?
No, it's on the front of the restaurant, but right on the very edge of its peripheral, it covers the alleyway entrance. Which you wouldn't have known if you hadn't checked.
Yeah, she'll mention this.
Well, should we go get a car then?
I'm not certain how Lark and I can assist you with any of this. How could we best assist you with this, since most of this seems your specialty rather than mine? I know
I'll just get a car, and then someone needs to drive the car to the front of the restaurant at the right time. Before that, I will need to go and pick the locks in the restaurant so we can go through and check for cameras in the restaurant. And then we'll need to take the body out of the dumpster and put it in the tarp and then take it through the restaurant. And at the right time, the car needs to come to the front, and then we need to go out the restaurant and into the car, and then we can take it wherever you want.
It's complicated.
Welcome to Vampire.
Dead body is always so inconvenient.
I know, right?
Okay. Is there any concern that anyone is going to get into that bin while it is currently unlocked?
Well,
Despite the new lock that you put on it?
it's not locked,
No, I know.
so they shouldn't do. But I mean, there's always a chance. We should go soon.
You now have 55 minutes.
So you will be car, restaurant locks, check for cameras in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I suppose Lark and I will be on the...
So I need to drive the car when I get it, and someone
Sure.
can distract you.
Drive the car.
So just for clarification, which side are you bringing it out? You're bringing it out on the entryway that you came through, the one where the restaurant is closed, right?
Yeah, so
I think so.
I think we're going to go through the restaurant, was it? And then, or
Okay.
out the alleyway, and
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely your call. Both the entrance to the restaurant and the actual alleyway come out onto the same street, besides one another.
but if we go through the restaurant, we don't have to worry about the CCTV covering the alleyway.
True, but that CCTV camera does cover the front of the restaurant.
Oh, it does it? Sorry. I
It
thought-
does,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's angled at the front of the restaurant, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
only in the very peripheral of the image that it catches the edge
So
of the
it's,
alleyway.
it's a CCTV camera that belongs to the restaurant,
Yeah.
as opposed to... Okay, so
Quite a few CCTVs have been installed now across restaurants and similar, because
chances are if we go into the restaurant, we can turn the CCTV off for our escape.
Is that something you can do?
Well, if I find the CCTV, the station, the thing, it's just like a video recorder,
Why not just kill it in the first place, and then we won't have to go through the restaurant?
because we need to go in. It will be in the restaurant. We can't kill it from outside.
Oh no, you
Okay.
kill it. I mean, I don't want to bring the body through the restaurant.
Well, yeah, we can do that. And then, okay.
Okay.
So Kit will go and get his lockpicking stuff for cars
okay.
and doors and electronic stuff that he doesn't want the camera to know about.
Okay. So you and Lark would certainly know. Daniel to a lesser extent, because this is probably close to where you've put your own car. There is a car park. It's north and northwest of where you currently reside. Just south of the Mancunian Way. If you're likely to find a car that is not going to be 100% covered by CCTV, it's this old parking lot. There's no need to roll for this because you guys know your domain well enough.
Cool. So yeah, we'll go and check a car that's fairly nondescript and away from CCTV.
Okay. So who's going with you? Is it just you?
As
Anyone else going?
coming to
Yeah, I'll come. I'll wait outside the parking lot until you departed, and then I'll join you.
Okay, where's Daniel going?
Because the plan is to get a car and take the body through the alley or through the restaurant.
through the alley, but we need to go into the restaurant and turn the cameras off.
Turn the cameras off. Okay, Daniel will probably change out of the clothes that he's currently wearing.
Okay.
So he will change out of the well-pressed suit and button-down shirt and trousers into something a little bit more like street clothes, which is very unusual to see him wearing. Makes him look very different, and he'll leave his glasses behind. He doesn't actually need them to see. They're cosmetic only.
Okay.
Because if there's going to be moving of a dead body and anything like that, he would prefer to look less like he usually does, somewhat more nondescript.
Okay. So where are you heading after you've changed? It's now pushing 1:15.
I know the alley that they...
Based off a description, you know, because the restaurant itself is an Indian restaurant. So it's quite it's a 4-5 star depending on what month you go. Restaurant that is a lot of the locals frequent it. It's one of the few places which can pull people in rather than just having them order a takeaway. So it normally is quite busy, but then the trademark is that they tend to close earlier than some of the other places, which is when the takeaways localized to them tend to pick up more. But the one that he's described you know of, it takes you a little while to find it. You don't beeline it there like the other two are able to, but it doesn't take you too long to find it. The bus lanes are frustratingly busy with a number of buses coming and going. Quite a few people on the plus side seem to be mounting onto the buses and going. But then every time that one bus stops, because you have them lining both sides of the street, there's about 3 on each side. As one empties and the people move off, it seems like another person will step out of a building or step around the corner or stagger over and drop and sit and chat, as is one particular thing next to you, which doesn't improve your mood any, in that they sit there, they don't look at the bus things, they're not checking the street, they're just sat there chatting. But you rein it in and you wait for the others. You two make an immediate beeline towards the north, in the area that you know where the parking area is. And it's a 2-story multi-story, such as it is, where you can just step around the barrier and go in. There is a stand where someone will normally sit and check tickets going in and out, but this time, because it's not a 24-hour parking space, there is a cut-off for it. They're not there. But it does occur to you that in order to get a car out, if you did want to take one from this safer area, the barrier is still down. However, you know there's not CCTV in here.
Okay. How is the barrier controlled, is it?
If you can open Jimmy the lock to get in, you can unlock it with a button.
Yeah, we'll do that then if there's no CCTV.
Okay, I'll tie that into your other roll.
Okay.
So it will be dexterity plus stealth. If Lark is close by,
Just keep
what
an
are you
eye
doing? Okay, so +1 for teamwork.
Do I get a +1 for my speciality?
Yes, you do.
Cool.
So it's +2 in total.
So, drop the dice. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 successes.
Lark, you don't even see him go in. As far as you're concerned, you're watching the street, checking, and you're about to look over to ask him how long it's going to be, and the thing's already lifting, and he's already standing outside waiting for you. And then as you go after him, he steps off. You double check the door, and you're certain it hasn't moved. It's like he's just clicked his fingers and the thing's just lifted. And he leads his way up, and because that's tied into your next roll, not only does he direct you up the slope, he begins moving up. He'll do a very quick glance one side, and then move up to the next one side, stop, and then he'll move over towards this car. And it is a very old-looking car, certainly not the kind of car that you'd ever expect anyone, like, for example, Daniel, to be driving. It's not an attractive car. But the benefit of it not being a modern car is immediately evident in the way that he moves up. He has a quick look around, and as you turn your back, you hear and then you watch as the bolts on the inside of the door just come up, and he just pulls the door, and then who's going in?
Yeah.
So I'll let Lark drive.
Okay.
Well, make sure the car starts first, and then I'll let Lark drive, because I need to get out and go and sort the restaurant out when we get there.
So remind me, Lark, what side of the road does everyone drive on in Canadian land?
The right side.
The right side. So, debate for another time. However, it is very... it feels very weird for you to be getting in the right-hand side of the car rather than the left-hand side of the car. And even more so when you notice that the lanes have reversed. Because you don't drive over in the UK. You haven't had to. But it takes you a little bit of time to readjust. And you have to constantly remind yourself to stay on the right side. But as you pull out, the barrier is still up. And you pull out onto the main road and go off. Did Kit get in the car with you?
Yeah, he'll get a lift down there. He'll get out closest to the restaurant.
Okay, so It doesn't take you long, Daniel, to identify which cars your companions is. You look for the gaudiest car that you could possibly see, and you see them go past. Even if you didn't notice the very, very, very pallid expression of Kit in the back, who's just staring ahead, and Lark, who is far more animate in observing people as she goes past. Yeah, there's your coterie mates. You're very glad you didn't option to go and get the car. And you see it pull off. And whereabouts are you going to drop him, Lark?
Out of
Yeah.
Yeah. So you continue down past the restaurant, and there is a turning which brings this road out onto the other side. So it connects the two streets. And as you pull around the side, you slow, and Kit just steps out, closes the door behind you, and then where are you going?
So I'm going into the alleyway.
Okay.
I would like to activate some obfuscates on my way in. Can I have Silence of Death and Ghost in the Machine?
Okay, where are you operating Silence of the Death?
It lasts a scene, doesn't it? So
It does, but where are you activating it?
probably as I step into the alleyway.
Okay. Yep, and the other one?
And Ghost in the Machine, which I roll a rouse for.
Yeah, there's a dice. No, there's not a dice pool. Okay.
No, I don't think so.
But you get +3 to difficulty tests. Yep, cool. All right, so yeah, so that is.
I have gone hungry, by the way.
You have? Okay.
Yes.
So
It's ridiculous dice rolls.
So as you step to one side, you see Lark pull off in the corner, but you're more focused on this alleyway. As you're making your way forward, I assume with your hood up, making your way over, there are people moving past you. You know the peripheral, because your beast is well aware of her more than anything, of him more than anything else. That Daniel was over there watching your progress, but he's doing a really good job of not making it obvious that he's there. He's not there like, you know, he's keeping an eye on the different bus stops and every now and again just watching you as his gaze sweeps. And as you breach the alleyway, you stop and you don't glance at it, but you know where the camera is looking. And before you step through it, your power begins to activate. And then you step in and around the corner. You keep your pace steady, not quickening it, not slowing it, and then turn the corner back towards the bin. Immediately, stones, checking them. You notice they have slightly moved, but the bin itself has not fully moved away, and you can't be sure whether or not that was because Lark has touched it. And you begin double checking again. They've only moved slightly, as though the bin's just been jaunted.
So I'll look around, and then I will check in the bin.
The body is still in there, still exposed as it was when Lark was rough. You don't know what she was moving, but you heard bin bags going while you were keeping an eye on your watch.
So it's a bit irritating the stones in move, but it's not surprising. So I'm going to go to the restaurant first and try and kill the CCTV there. So pick lock in the back door, go in, find CCTV.
So do me dexterity plus larceny, please, and your specialty will apply. What grade equipment have you got?
Pretty good, I think. I don't think we agreed on anything particularly, but
what's your resources?
2, and he doesn't really spend it on much apart from. So.
Okay. As long if you're happy to have your resources, not permanently but effectively drop by 1 for a little while, you can have a +1. So you can note down later on that you have a +1.
Okay. So this one is 1, 2, 5 successes in this roll.
This is where all your successes are going, guys.
I know. So I'm getting really worried of this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Despite the fact that the pain in your stomach is suddenly intensified, like someone's kind of gripping your intestine and turning it, that hunger begins gnawing up as you, and it has since you started making your approach towards the alleyway. And although you feel safer because you're more keenly aware that people can't hear you, and if they can't hear you, they can't see where you are, they can't locate you through audio, And although that is on your mind and you're focusing trying on the repeated process of this lock, that pain does intensify. And it takes you every now and again just to stop, refocus, and just keep going. And then the lock twists and the door opens. Or opens outwards, rather. And then you step around and have a look. And it looks like where you currently are, you're looking through the very rear of a kitchen. There is a shin-level sink with a grill plate over the top, which lifts and goes down. Around the corner, you can see what looks to be a storage area for beers and kitchen utensils and similar. And then straight ahead of you, you can see a passage which leads to the wider kitchen. And you can see what looks to be a food make table on various other bits and pieces. It's quite a large-sized kitchen, although where you are is quite narrow. The wider kitchen itself has a bigger space, but you can't tell, being on the outside, whether or not there's any cameras in the kitchen.
Okay, so I'm going to go through into the restaurant, looking for an office somewhere where there might be CCTV monitors and the recording equipment.
Okay, are you going to try and do this quickly, or are you going to do this carefully and thoroughly? You are now pushing at about half an hour left.
So we afford to do this carefully, I think.
Okay, so it'll be resolve plus, we'll say investigation. It's not a big building, but it's whether or not you're going to disturb anything in the process of. And if there are CCTV, whether you end up wandering in.
So that's... I'm going to willpower that because I got no successes. Okay. I don't have a big resolve. Oh no, yeah, that's... So 1 success.
Okay. It takes you a little longer than you're comfortable with. And certainly with Lark and Daniel checking, you're watching every now and again, glancing towards an analog watch, or not an analog watch, an old dial watch, and the minutes are slowly ticking. And he doesn't yet emerge, and there is a moment where one of you does want to head into the alleyway and check, but then before too long, inwardly, although you can't see it, you do manage to find the office. And it takes you a bit of time because the office itself looks to have been basically moved into one of the smallest rooms in this building. It is not a big building, but there is a second floor. The second floor stairs looks to be in an old kind of one of the doors where you push it and it unclicks and you pull it open. So it's kind of merged next to where all the coat racks and everything else is kept for the kitchen staff for where they get changed. And then from heading up that stairs, at the very top and on the right, you can see a small office door which is locked. And it takes you a few moments just to jimmy it, just keeping your eye out, keeping your ears listening. Although you have to remind yourself you can't hear anything because noise isn't passing anywhere around you. You do it anyway, out of paranoia, and then pull the door. And you can see a very cramped office space. Very cramped. So small that you could only get 2 small chairs in there, side by side. And you'd have to remove one of them to be able to step in and get into the first chair in the first place. But there is a desk which goes in an L shape in this small space. There's a computer there. There looks to be a large safe underneath, where likely the day's takings have been put. There's shelves across the wall where different files on staff members, different files on the restaurant, on health and safety are all packed. And then you can see up on that shelf and on the far end, acting as a kind of book stop for all the files, looks to be an electronic device, and on top of that, a screen with all the different cameras lining up to the restaurants. Various different places that you've had to walk through to get here, plus one that is looking out onto the street.
Okay, so Kit will look at if he thinks he can wipe the CCTV completely so people can't see that where he's been through, and it will just be broken, and he'll do that. Otherwise, he'll just adjust all the cameras so they're not looking at the alleyway, and he'll mess with the ones inside the restaurant as well.
Okay, this isn't new enough where you can adjust the cameras. You'd have to flick them off.
Okay.
Because it's more a case of if you want to adjust them, you have to move them. The ones on the inside look as though they're one of the ball cameras where it can slightly turn.
Yeah.
But the one on the outside, the one that you're specifically trying to ensure 100% is off, is one of the fixed ones that looks down.
Okay. So yeah, if he thinks he can wipe it quickly, then he'll do that. Otherwise, he'll just turn all the cameras off.
Okay, right. So we're going to have wits plus technology. It's going to be wits because you're doing this quickly.
One, two, three, four, 5 successes. 1, 2. Yeah, 5 successes.
Okay. Not only are you confident that you've managed to turn them all off, you've managed to do so on a time delay. So it will turn itself back on later on. So they're not just going to come in and find that the system's turned itself off. It will look as though it had to reboot. So you are fairly certain that not only will you manage to mask the fact that that someone's come in and turned this off, provided you remember to lock all the doors on the way out. The only thing that you might need to worry about is the blur that's you moving through the building in the first instance that got caught on camera. You could wipe that. You don't know whether... Basically, it's up to you whether or not you want to wipe it as a process of this. Someone might get a check later on to see whether or not they notice it's been wiped. But it's already going to be at a higher difficulty, even if they do manage to recover the footage, because to identify you, you've got Ghost in the Machine.
I think he will... If he doesn't touch it, chances are no one will check it. So he will just leave it, I think, at this point. The door's on the way out.
Okay, so you flip it off, you work your magic, watching on there, and every now and again you notice, I'm assuming Lark's car going past. Are you circuiting the area, Lark, or are you pulled up somewhere?
I think I was pulled up and waiting.
Okay, so you don't see Lark going past. You can kind of see what looks to be the lower left foot, or the lower right foot, sorry, of Daniel, right on the very cusp of the opposite end of the peripheral. He's not moving, which you think is a good sign. And once you've finished and you clip it and stop, you get back in, you replace the chair, spending a good 20 seconds just positioning in it exactly how you found it. And then you close the door, lock it silently, move back down the stairs. You now know all the placement of the camera, and against your own volition, 1, 2, 3, check as you moving through the front of the restaurant, around the back of the restaurant, back towards the rear entrance, through the kitchen, making sure the door is fully pulled back. Then you go towards the back, make sure that nothing has been moved in your passage, pull the door, pull out your tools, click it, although you can't hear it, and then you step away, confident that everything was left as you found it.
Okay, so now we'll go to the entrance that's now CCTV free and wait for Lark to come past, in which case we can pull the car up and go get the body.
Okay. Because at this point, quite a few, because now it's pushing about 1:45. There's quite a few people that have left on buses. The two that were sitting around incessantly chatting that you could not help but pay attention to, Daniel, because you were wondering, are they going to fucking be there when you need to move that body? Fortunately, a taxi pulled up, or an Uber, or whatever it was. You're not as current with it as you should be. But they piled into the back of it and then took off. You can see at all 6 stops, 3 people, including yourself. The other 2 are separate. One is on the phone, and the other one is just there with a bag, carrier bag between their legs, just waiting. Do you want to do anything before Lark pulls up?
There are 3 people aside from me?
No, 3 people including you.
Including me.
One of the other ones is on their phone across from you. And one, which is currently looking up and down the street, is on your side that is facing the restaurant further down. But their attention is on the end of the street, looking at the other way, obviously waiting for a bus to come up. So it's not like they're sweeping in front of them where they're going to see you guys come out. But then again, if anyone pulls up, you don't know whether or not that's going to get their attention because they're waiting for a vehicle to come. Clearly a bus, but any agent is going to draw anyone that's been waiting long enough.
So there's a risk that that person might notice.
Potentially. I mean, the other one that's on their phone could look up.
Hmm.
The one that's on your side, you do notice you kind of watch them at your peripheral, does have headphones in. The one that's checking the phone does not. Vampire makes everything fun.
I know. Ugh. I think we're all just like, oh, this is going to go so badly.
This is great.
We've seen so many examples of how this goes wrong.
Yes.
Do this, guys. Smooth.
Don't be known as Disaster Coterie 2.
Yeah.
The sequel.
The sequel.
Because did I give them, I assume I gave them my tarp as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something
if
I
you-
think we would have picked
yeah.
up after the boot. Or
Reluctantly, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you're talking about 300, 400 pound harp. Because you're Triador, you're not going to do things by half. I mean, there are nicer tarps out there, but this one's got the stars on it.
Hmm. Constellations.
Yep. Probably your favorite constellation is pictured on there. Probably
Oh,
hand woven by blind nuns.
Very favorite
yeah.
tarp.
Something.
This was
Just
the tarp that you were going to get princedom someday in.
I can't. No, I can't
The pain
laugh
is
right now.
real.
I'm trying to think.
I have that problem.
If you make me laugh, I'm done for.
Oh, really?
Don't start, please.
Would I?
Okay. Can I conceivably distract these people by
Not
talking
both of them at the same time.
at the same time?
They're on opposite sides of the road.
What is the proximity of my awe?
Hmm. I mean, it's not going to be. I mean, one of them has got headphones in, the other one's distracted on their phone. You're not going to be able to get them both. It's entirely up to you which one you think might notice more. The one that's got headphones in but is looking down both ends of the street, or the one that hasn't got headphones in but is looking at their phone, but is on that side of the street.
Like my side?
No,
Is
the one on the phone is opposite you, with their the front of the restaurant is backing off to their left. The one that is directly opposite the restaurant is the one that has headphones in, listening to music, but is currently looking up and down the street. So have a think on which one you're going to distract.
Okay.
Lark, you're going to be pulling up this side, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Kit, are you grabbing the body?
Yeah, when I see Lark going, he'll start getting the body out.
Okay.
So, sorry, I need to bring the tarp to the back, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that isn't something you took with you. Correct?
I wouldn't have thought I'd have it with me because I've been.
No.
No, to be lockpicking and all the rest of it, he wouldn't have.
Just checking.
Both his, yeah, so you got the tarp with you in the car.
Cool. I will. Yeah, okay. I guess it makes sense for me to bring it to you. And we'll... Okay, so she'll do that. She'll
Pulling up?
Pulling up.
Okay.
Unfortunately, leave the car running, and I don't have keys for this thing.
No, because it was jury-rigged to move.
Boosted.
So as you are trying to deduce which one you're going to focus on, you see that gaudy car begin pulling up, moving past, and immediately the one that is looking does glance up, look at the car, and then look back down the road. But as the car slowly pulls up and its exhaust pipe begins rattling, the other one that's looking at the phone does glance up and glance over, and then look back on their phone. So they've both seen the car, but they're not there going, "What? That's not a bus."
Yeah.
So
that's fine. So is Okay. How small does this tarp hold up? Is it gigantic? Is it?
Yeah,
I realize it's fancy,
long,
but how large is it?
Probably looking at about almost 2 meters long,
Okay.
and about 1.5 meters wide.
Okay. So
it's not thick.
yeah, as nonchalantly as possible, as though I'm just dropping something off somewhere as an errand. I see you shifting your eyes. Is this okay?
I mean, technically you are.
Technically, I am what?
You know, dropping something off somewhere.
I am. Just an errand.
Dropping off or picking up?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and I'll bring it over.
Okay.
Get the dirty work done.
So you see Lark getting out of the vehicle. The vehicle's engine is still going. She moves around to the side, opens up the rear passenger door, leans in, and then comes back out with that so beautiful tarp. What are you doing, Daniel? Who are you speaking to, if anyone? Or are you just going to keep an eye out?
The one with headphones I'm less concerned about because headphones tend to be fairly distracting. You're not going to notice noise as much, especially if you're looking for a bus. So I'll probably talk to the one on my side of the street.
That's the one with headphones on.
Okay. Mm.
The one without headphones, which is looking at the phone but hasn't got headphones in, is directly opposite you.
Yeah, okay. I'll cross the street, I think, to speak to that one.
Okay. So Lark grabs the tarp, begins moving in.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's on the street is sat back on the phone. It doesn't seem to notice as you cross. You do wait for one car to go by and then double check and then just move over. Looks to be someone that's in their early 20s. Based upon how they're dressed, they look like someone that is either on their way going out or is on their way going home, but they don't look drunk. So it's hard to gauge. But he is currently on his phone just texting. And it's only when there is a vehicle coming down the road leading towards him that he actually stops and looks up and then goes back to his phone. So as you approach, he doesn't look up. What do you do?
I'll probably try to engage him as if I am just a fellow person here who is going to be taking a bus. Because I'll use awe for the sake of holding his attention, but just ask him if he happens to be able to look up the bus schedule or if he has it on his phone. Because I don't know, do you guys post the bus schedule?
Yeah.
See, we don't. That wouldn't work then. Asking somebody to look up the bus schedule on their phone is so normal here. Yeah, I don't know. I might just try to engage this guy in small talk.
Okay, what are you going to say?
I hate coming up with dialogue like this.
Well, we can leave it if you want and you can just roll.
That makes it harder, doesn't it?
Who knows?
Oh, yeah. You don't know.
Well, I know.
Lock stories are fascinating subjects to talk about.
Yeah. What you want to do is get Kit out and get Kit to speak to him.
Yeah.
About the lock, his lock.
It's like, so have you ever broken a lock in your life? You
What's your
have?
favorite
Right,
kind?
we're having a discussion. Did you touch my lock?
No, I'll probably just do a raw roll for this. I'm too panicked over this dead body to come up with good dialogue.
Okay, so we'll say I'll let you decide charisma plus manipulation, but it's going to be performance because you're not convincing him of anything, you're not lying to him, you are actively trying to keep his attention. Okay. So your choice of attribute, but that's the skill.
Does my specialty apply? I guess no, because I'm not orating.
Depends on, I mean, you could say that what you're saying is an oration.
Well, it's because my specialty for performance is public speaking.
Not really then, because that's more public speaking to a wider crowd. Unless you're just kind of going to look at him as though he's one of many crowds, and he might just think that you're a crazy guy that's coming to preach at him. But, right, cool.
I'm a Toreador, not an Octavian.
Well, hey, man.
Keep telling yourself that.
Yeah.
I got it right. I got it right in the introduction. I
You've
said
still
my
got
plan
3 more
properly.
episodes to let that slip, you know.
Okay, so I'll go with manipulation plus performance.
Sure thing.
Wow. So 2 10s is a crit.
On what dice?
Hmm.
Hunger dice?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a messy critical.
Because I got 2 regular dice with successes and my 2 hunger dice, because I am in hunger 2, are both
Right,
10.
okay. So... Right, let me just check something.
Oh,
You're good with these great rolls, you know.
I know.
I'm just
It's
getting
gonna be
more and more.
me.
Yeah.
There's one in every game. There's one in every game. And in this
Oh.
game, I'm gonna get all the bestials and all the messies.
Finally.
You say that with such enthusiasm, though.
It's that I'm smiling at the same time. It's horrible. This is not a good thing.
Ah,
It's
well,
Also
It's a great
great.
thing. It's a great
yeah. Right, so... Here we are. Sorry for the delay.
That is okay. I'm not even sure what I'm saying to this guy. This is how concerned I am about these 2 moving a dead body.
Better you tell him it's going to be great.
Okay. So, as Lark vanishes down the corridor, you step up towards this young man, and as he stops and looks at you, he pauses and glances up at you as you start speaking at him. And for a moment, it looks like his attention is immediately just going to dip back down to his phone. He's only going to pay half mind to you. But then as your ore begins hitting him, he turns and just stares at you for a bit longer. And stares. And stares. And then as you're speaking to him, you note that although he is staring transfixed, it's not the kind of awe and fascination with what you're saying that you expect. And it's only then that it occurs to you that you are fully engaging a human who is getting up off of the bench and rapidly stepping away towards the other bus stop across to cut through the alleyway, that you've gone to engage him without blush of life.
Oh, crap.
And in becoming more animate, what initially was a kind of half notice and you just look slightly pallid, you managed to draw his attention supernaturally to you to fixate on you as this corpse wandered up to him and began speaking.
Oh, God.
So he has not noticed the shop because he has immediately gotten to his feet, crossed over, and whilst he's turned and stared at you, he has bolted down the alleyway opposite. And it's a short alleyway which leads directly out onto the other street. And he looks back, stares at you just before he steps around the corner, and he moves at speed. And he has gone so damn quickly that he's left his phone behind. But he hasn't noticed the shop.
Yes.
I forgot that my extra hunger was from rousing and not from using Blush of Life.
Oh yeah, as
Ugh.
Blood on the Thames players will tell you, and so are my old players, I'm a bitch for Blush of Life.
If you
That's why it's such a nice thing that it lasts all night. So
normally I'm good at remembering things like this. I can't believe I forgot.
Stress.
it's I mean, it's cool. Everyone's allowed one.
Yeah.
Everybody gets one, Peter. So
I've scared the shit out of this guy and he's running away?
yeah. I mean, it wasn't just a slip like, oh, fangs are dropped. No, you're a talking corpse that's walked up to him, pallid expression, non-blinking, non-breathing. And normally someone might be able to see that and think, fuck dripping the eyes, but you supernaturally forced his attention onto you and kept it there. So every single thing about you, which is talking corpse, he has noticed. Pallid, sunken cheeks, everything. Non-breathing, non-blinking, and he is darted. He is gone. And it takes him to get into the other side of the road, and then you glancing down, seeing his phone, glancing back to him and seeing him look back. And it's only when you've looked back towards the phone and seen your reflection in the glass that you've actually noticed why he's bolting. Because you had his attention. You were lost in the speech. You were on fucking fire. Figuratively.
Nailed it.
And then... where the fuck's he... Where's... Oh.
Oops. Because
Lark, I did a bad thing.
Yeah. I did a dumb.
Do you know what, Lark? Do you know what I see you doing?
What's that?
I see you becoming the Moses.
Get my broom.
Get your broom. So, no, you've already gone into the alleyway at this point. You've turned the corner.
Because I am in public, I feel I should probably use Blush of Life now that I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So I will do that now.
Sure.
Those two can continue with what they're doing.
Yep, make your oils check.
Success.
Awesome.
Thank God.
So, within the building, Lark, it takes you a few moments just to, not within the building, sorry. Within the alleyway, you immediately beeline back towards that, towards the rubbish bin. And Kit is there double checking the stones again. Have you moved them back into place? Or are you waiting until you've taken the body out?
Cool.
So he is noticing them. And then as you come around, he lifts up the bin. And the body is still in there, still exposed with the bags off. You can hear overhead the of the what the fuck noise was that? The strangled crow noise coming from up above as the crows are still in the area. And one does drop down onto the top of the same top of the door frame where it went down the last time, and it's now eyeing the bin as you are holding it open. It's not approaching, but it's eyeing the bin.
So Kit will just hop into the bin and start trying to haul the corpse out.
Okay. It's difficult. Not only because the bin makes for extremely unstable footing.
I have cat's grace.
Then you find it a hell of a lot less easy. Less easy? More easy. Come on, Titus, use your words. You use them as a living. You move the bins out of the way and you begin hauling. And it's difficult not because you can't find your footing, but when you pick him up, the flesh that's still on his torso slides with your hands as you grip it. And you have to try and bodily haul him to lift. And you kind of pitch towards Lark as if to say, grab him, so that you can actually... And reluctantly, she takes him underneath the arms. And you can feel the bone and the ligatures as you lift him. And between the two of you, you haul him bodily out. Your shirt is now ruined, Kit, but you do manage to get him up and out. He's still covered in bits of food from where the bags have been disturbed and bits and pieces have come out. So between the three of you, you look relatively messy. Lark less so for the first, potentially, time. Sorry. Comparatively.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten quite so much ghoul on you as you haul the body out. And then you climb back out of the bin and you pull back down the lid. And it's frustrating now that you're focusing on it and you pull down. You notice that the lid does close, but where the plastic's bent it up, there's a very slight gap, which is where the crows were trying to get to earlier because of the way the plastic's bent. But with the body now between you, are you unfurling the top?
So, so Kit will let Lark sort of wrap the body up once it's on the top, and he's going to get the stones back properly.
Okay, so you're turning the bin again.
Yeah, and get it right.
Okay, so you hear that as he begins going around and taking the brakes off of all the wheels to twist it, and then removing and placing the pebbles all back. But the amount of time he takes doing it, it's almost like someone that's trying to balance a coin on its side and not make it move, because he is putting it ever so slightly. And from the flurry of activity that was trying to get this body out and keeping an eye on the door, all of a sudden it's suddenly snail's paces.
Yeah.
But you don't want to interrupt him, because fuck it, you've got your own things to do. And you start moving the tarp, and you can feel the body just kind of easily turning and then thump, and then turning and then thump as you wrap him. And then you've got the whole body, but you kind of need a hand to move it. Well, maybe. And he's doing the last wheel. And then another.
In 20 seconds, and if he doesn't wrap up, we whisper his name. Kit.
So Kit's going to concentrate on that last stone until it's done. And he's going to put the key in the lock and leave it. So hopefully that will stop them wandering too much.
Okay, so you've left the key in the lock.
Yeah.
Okay, so you leave the key in.
Yep.
There is a reluctance to you leaving the key in, but you know it's for the best, so you kind of leave it, and you're happy now that the stones are back in place.
Yep.
And you immediately move over and pick up the other end of the tarp.
Yep.
Okay, so between the two of you, and you're starting to move out. Okay, do me a... Whoever wants to lead this, might be Lark if she's heading it. We'll say strength plus stealth.
Cool.
Okay.
And you get a +1 because you've got someone helping you.
I'm still got Silence of Death on, if that helps as well.
It would have, but the one that's currently there left to see already has headphones in.
Fair enough.
3 successes. 3.
Okay.
Concerned silence.
So, Daniel, as you're watching this alleyway, you pitch back and glance over at the other one, who is still there, glancing up and down. Every now and again, they do lift their head and just turn and look the other way, but it's more kind of trading between the two. You don't know whether or not their focus has gone back over to the car. To be honest, you've been kind of distracted. But then as you do glance back around, you do see Lark moving backwards, and she looks her head out, glances, sees that you're not on the other side of the road, looks for you, sees you, looks back around, and then moves over towards the car. And in that way where she kind of grips the tarp to her torso and then reaches behind her and grabs the door, she clicks it, opens it, and then starts trying to... Because the boot's not big enough, so you're going to need to put him on the back seat. And then you see Kit moving out behind and trying to pull in. Between the two of them, they manage to push the tarp in, try to close the door, and then it bounces back, and then Kit has to kind of bend the knees to pull it in, bend the knees to push the end in, and then Lark shuts it. Where are you going?
Yep.
Okay, so you both...
I'll let Kit decide if he wants to get in the car or not. I will not pick up Daniel.
Kit will try and if Lark's been struggling.
Okay. What's Daniel doing?
That's a good question.
Questioning his life choices.
The problem with having a really smart character and a player who's not on the ball, because then I'm like, he's so much smarter than that, but I had a moment. Okay.
You were distracted by the fact that your tarp was about to get ruined.
To be honest, this has not been the most usual day for you.
No, truly hasn't.
I mean, you got to remember, Blush of Life is a conscious thing. It's not something that will happen reflexively.
Yeah.
You have forgotten how to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time you activate it, you're having a Bambi moment. You have to remind yourself how to walk. But it only takes a few minutes for you to do so, but it is deeply unsettling when you do it, because if there's ever going to be a bigger reminder that you are not living anymore, it's when your lungs start to breathe for the first time in years, maybe, depending on how reclusive you are. And if you think how strikingly contrasting it is to you when you suddenly can't breathe and how much your body reacts to that sensation, imagine it in reverse. Every time, with every single sensation and every single operation of your body coming alive like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
this guy's left his phone behind.
Yeah.
And he just runs off into an alley.
Yeah. It is locked, though.
His phone's locked?
It's one of the ones where you need to thumb
With
it.
a thumbprint. I'll definitely take his phone.
Okay.
At Hunger 2, the urge to chase after him is not overwhelming.
No.
The beast knows that we could probably catch him fast. We know how to go fast. But the more reasonable, logical side of him, especially at Hunger 2 only, knows that is a terrible, terrible idea. We are in public. We have already fucked up once. I feel like I might need to track this guy down at a different time.
But there's only one observer. There's only one observer, and there's no guarantee they're looking. You could get to the end of that alleyway in a second if you wanted to. And you might not be able to grab him in that second because he's turned the corner, but you can see where he's going. And if you did it twice, you could catch him. If you're not seen, not only is it not a breach, you've also potentially solved a breach.
Would I have to... How would I solve it just by catching him, though? I would kind of need to do something with him.
Your beast isn't thinking that far ahead.
No, the beast doesn't care. It's like, just catch him.
Meals on wheels, food wagon.
Fast food.
I can get a bite.
I mean, he is your equivalent of the bad idea bears.
Pardon?
Buy a keg of beer! That kind of bad advice when you're trying to be good. But in this, it's... Eat him! Eat him, Daniel! You've already fucked up once, twice!
We're already hiding one body, we just add another one to it.
I was going to say, make another body. Oh, go on. We're going to get at this. It's fine.
So for everyone else, they actually have the beast. But for Daniel, it's like a Care Bear in their body that's like, do it!
Oh, dear.
It stands to reason the most intelligent one has the most childish of beasts.
It's fine.
The inescapable truth is that I just breached anyway, and I need to catch him. So yeah, I think I can use fleetness. I need a rouse for that, don't I?
Yep, you do, and if you are seen, it is a breach. You cannot mistake that quick a movement for anything else. You are Usain Bolt on fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
Or however the name is said.
Mm-hmm.
Can't recall. Yeah.
I think it's right.
Are you going to do it?
Yeah.
You two have come out of the alleyway and are shoving the body in when you guys obviously notice that Daniel's attention is not on you, it's on an alleyway across the way.
Did he cross the street, or where's the
Yeah,
alley
so where he was sitting and facing was the bus stop where you were stood looking across towards the shop. So the shop where they've come out is towards the left of where he was sat. So if you look left, the car is parked up further down the road. And they're obviously moving the body in. So you are now looking across the street back where you were standing, through the alleyway, and off towards the right is where he ran down and turned.
Can I get to that alley at normal human speed and use fleetness once I get there? so that I'm not crossing an entire street at a ridiculous pace where anyone might.
You can if you want, but you don't know how quick a runner he is. You saw him double timing it over and then pick up pace when he got in.
Because using celerity in the middle of the street, I don't know that Daniel would.
Sure, cool. But the longer you take, the further away he's going to get.
And I only have one observer on the street. These two are like laughing at me. I see
They're like, we have a body here.
We're busy. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
It's all right. You have a ponder. So, are you both getting in the car? Obviously, whatever Daniel decides will happen at the same time as you getting into the car.
Yeah.
But
So I get in and I wait to see if Kit gets in, and Daniel was in charge of doing security. So whatever he's
making
doing,
sure nothing happened that was
making
bad.
sure it goes smooth. He's got it. He's reliable. So whatever he's doing, it's what he has to do. So we have a job. So she's gonna get in the car and wait for Kit, and then once he's in, we'll go.
Get in. Yeah.
Okay. It's now gone 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so we are going to head back to. We're taking this back to our haven.
You haven't discussed?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Got as far as we'll get the body in the car.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we need to dump the car soon before it's reported.
So keep in mind that the car itself, as soon as it's reported, is a stolen vehicle.
So we can get rid of this body.
Unless you want to take the car back, but you did hotwire it.
Yeah, and it's got body all over it. Well, it's not
you ditch it somewhere, it's fine.
If you really want to confuse them, hotwire it, take it out for a drive, and then put it back.
No, you just drop it off somewhere. Some kid's having a joyride.
Not only do they bring it back, it's faster.
See that, or you just leave the corpse in the car and then leave it in someone else's territory.
Listen, all options to you guys, which were not discussed altogether. So whilst you now quickly decide where you're going to go,
we'll just get rid of the body, and then Danny will be like, guess what, guys? Look what I've got.
You won!
Yeah.
There you go. So, what are you doing, Daniel? Staying or going?
I'll go, and I'll chase.
Yeah.
Okay, so what speed are you heading to that alleyway?
Fleetness is not as fast as Blink, right?
No, it is not. Blink is where you over there.
Mm-hmm. Which would be convenient. But
I mean, Blink can get you there quicker than someone can pull a trigger. I believe, which is why you can jump in the initiative, which is always a useful skill to have. Celerity for Blink.
I don't have Blink. I only have Fleetness.
Yeah, so for Fleetness, sorry. Sorry, guys. This will occur on occasion. So basically, you get to add your celerity dots to your foot chase. So it will make you move quicker. I don't believe it is a... Yeah. So it allows you to move with dizzying speed. It might not... I mean, if you get a ridiculous number of successes, it could be seen as supernatural. If you get a messy critical, it will be seen as supernatural.
I'll try not to do that again.
So this is the kind of role where you want to beat the guy that you're trying to foot chase, but you don't want to beat him by lots.
Okay. What's my pool for this? Athletics?
It'll be Dex plus Athletics plus Celerity, because it's only going to gain Fleetness if you use Dexterity.
Mm-hmm.
So this is you navigating the confines of... So I'm going to get the results of this roll, and then we'll go back to you two, because you've seen him cross back over. But as far as you can see, since he's heading towards that alleyway at normal speed, well, brisk speed, you're not going to see him suddenly go woof.
So that's...
Yeah.
4 successes.
4. Okay. So, Lark and Kit, you pull off with the car, and you watch as Daniel crosses over in your rear view mirror, crossing over to the side of the street, and he's focused on this alleyway, and he's just moving off. But you think, okay, right, got the body, moving off, and you start heading down and turning as you two begin trying to silently come to a joint decision about where you're going, and you turn off. The last thing you see in your rearview mirror is Daniel's foot vanish as he goes into the alleyway. And the moment you are in the alleyway, Daniel, your beast is urging. And that kind of pain as an incentive, even though you are not as hungry as you could be, at this point it just feels like you haven't eaten in 4 days, 5 days. It's a pain, but you can live with it. And then all of a sudden that pain intensifies. And the flip side of that is that your vision seems to focus and your senses seem to focus. And it's almost like every step he has taken is echoing in your head as you hear the footfalls. So then you suddenly lean forward and then start moving, and your feet start hitting the pavement. And then all of a sudden, woof, you hit that corner and you turn. And you can see he's gotten towards the end of the alleyway, and just as he is looking like he's about to head out, he seems to be looking for something, and as he stops and he turns and he looks back, he watches as you suddenly come up behind him and do what? He is close to the mouth of the alleyway. There are people moving backwards and forwards. No one's immediately looking. He has seen you. What are you doing?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
So he has come towards the far end of the alleyway. He's about to turn off onto the street. He's stopped. Clearly, he's just realized that he's left his phone. Just as he is about to step out into the out of the alleyway where people are moving back and forth, he has stopped, looked back, and seen you there, directly behind him, from where you've caught up to him in a matter of seconds. What are you doing where he's seen you? Keeping in mind, although you now look human, he has seen you as a very much not human thing.
Mm-hmm. Is he close? So, do we have
He's
eye contact?
at the mouth of the alleyway. He's turned and he's seen you. He hasn't looked you in the eye yet, but it's more kind of wide-eyed seeing you, something there behind him. This is in the 2 seconds since he's turned and seen you that you're acting.
Because if I can make eye contact with him, I would probably compel him, command.
Okay. Right, we'll do a roll then, because the circumstances of this. So the contested roll that you can make it. Because compelled does have I believe it does have a comparison pool.
I thought that was only against other kindred.
It normally is, but you've got a guy that's witnessed you alive and is in the split second from screaming.
Then what is the roll for that? Charisma
I believe
dominate?
it'll be... Yes, we'll say charisma plus dominate.
Or is it manipulation dominate?
We'll say it's charisma, because at the moment it's going to be force of personality.
So charisma...
At this point, you're kind of hitting him with the blunt force that is your charisma instead of the manipulation that is scalpel.
How far away is he from me?
2 feet. You've caught right up behind him before he turned. He's turned, but he is probably about 4 feet away from the end of the alleyway. Sorry.
Command is fairly limited. Can you command someone to follow, or is that too extended?
Let me just have a look.
Because it's a single word command that must be obeyed immediately, but not as extensive as compel.
It's more something that can immediately be done, not something that could be maintained, I think. But then again, the duration is no more than a single scene. Okay, so we'll say I'll allow him to follow you away from the mouth of the thing if you beat that roll. Okay. Because of the circumstances of you compelling him. I mean, he has fully witnessed that you're not alive. So this will be a roll. If you succeed, he'll follow. If you're not, he's going to get a scream out.
Okay. That's manipulation dominate. Three successes.
Three successes. You run towards the end of the alleyway, and as your form pulls up next to him, he stops and he sees you. His mouth opens, and you can almost see just above those veins, those oh so tempting veins that are going through the neck, his throat bulge as he's about to scream. And you finally, in that split second, catch his eye and say, "Follow." And the moment that he sees it, he stops, almost like he's choking. And although his expression does not change, the scream doesn't come, and then he just starts following after you back down the alleyway. And that, guys, is where we're going to end tonight's episode.
Oh, dear.
That went a bit different. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. It did run slightly over, but the episodes themselves will roughly be about this length, just purely because obviously we've got a lot to fit into 4 episodes. Was there anything anyone wanted to cover before we vanished? No?
I don't think
All
so.
good? So, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for Dylan, because he's been doing a hell of a lot of tech work, and for Callum for all the prep work that they've done, obviously getting us all set up. And thank you to my awesome players for giving me the chance to ST again online, which is a hell of a lot better than I thought it was going to go, even with the technical failings. And that's not because my tech goals are bad, it's because I got no luck when it comes to tech, as is proven. So thank you very much for watching us, guys, and we will see you next Monday at same time to see what the hell these guys do with this burning corpse. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.